Chapter 2585 Farewell. 2585 Farewell. Who else wants to challenge? Yun Ting wielded the divine firmament sword. Although he expended a lot of energy, his body was still sharp as he surveyed his surroundings like lightning. The cultivators who were cheering for Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu earlier on no longer spoke. If even Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu were dead and injured, which other cultivator on the heaven ranking prediction would dare to challenge these two? Who knew if the two of them had any other tricks up their sleeves? A moment later, no one dared to step forward. Yun Ting turned around and looked at Immortal King Qin Yang in the middle of the hall, declaring, "Immortal King Qin Yang, you can announce the rank 1 and 2 of the heaven ranking this time round." Immortal King Qin Yang smiled gently and nodded. "That's good as well. Rank 1 of the heaven ranking has to convince the masses. Since nobody has any objections, I'll announce now that the rank 1 of the heaven ranking this time round is Su Zimo of Heaven and Earth Academy. Rank 2 is Yun Ting of the Xian Immortal Kingdom. The other battles for the heaven ranking shall proceed as per normal." Su Zimo and Yun Ting walked down the gigantic stone battlefield. Yun Ting flipped his palm and took out a withered yellow ancient scroll, tossing it in Su Zimo's direction. Su Zimo swept his gaze and recognized it right away. This ancient scroll was made from the same materials as the manuals of the heaven and earth slaying sword arts in his storage bag. Furthermore, although the ancient scroll looked calm, it was actually extremely sharp. The human slaying sword art. Su Zimo reached out and received the ancient scroll. One of the most important goals for them to challenge one another was to fuse the 3 great sword arts into one. This was what Yun Ting had to offer if he lost to Su Zimo. It was the same for the other way round. Given Yun Ting's character, there was naturally no way he would break his promise. After receiving the human slaying sword art, Su Zimo pondered for a moment, and took out 2 other withered yellow ancient scrolls from his storage bag, tossing them to Yun Ting. Su Zimo said, "These are the heaven and earth slaying sword arts." Ever since he ascended, Yun Ting was one of the few cultivators he had befriended and acknowledged in his heart. Although the two of them had fought twice, there was no deep feud. Su Zimo admired Yun Ting's pride, honesty, and integrity. Furthermore, Yun Ting was Yun Zhu's younger brother. Since Yun Ting was willing to hand the human slaying sword art to him, he did not want to take advantage of Yun Ting either. He handed the heaven and earth slaying sword arts to Yun Ting. Many cultivators were moved when they saw that. If it was anyone else, they would not show supreme cultivation techniques such as the heaven and earth slaying sword arts casually, even to those closest to them. To think that the 1,000 cultivators would be lucky enough to witness such a scene at the divine firmament Immortal meet today. But soon, an even more shocking scene happened. After Yun Ting received the heaven and earth slaying sword arts, he threw them back to Su Zimo without even looking at them and shook his head. "I don't need them anymore." "Why?" Su Zimo frowned slightly in confusion. Yun Ting had never seen the heaven and earth slaying sword arts before. With just a single human slaying sword art, he cultivated the bloodline phenomenon of the incomplete immortal vanquishing sword. Given his talent, if he had seen the heaven and earth slaying sword arts, he would definitely be able to cultivate his bloodline phenomenon into a true peerless divine power. Furthermore, Su Zimo believed that Yun Ting would definitely comprehend the immortal vanquishing sword before him. "Prince Yun Ting, accept it!" "That's right, don't be rash, Prince!" Many cultivators of the Xian Immortal Kingdom persuaded. The peerless divine power was within reach, but Yun Ting rejected it. "A defeat is a defeat." Yun Ting shook his head gently. In his opinion, Su Zimo giving him the 2 sword arts was a form of pity and charity. He would not accept it. Yun Ting looked into the distance with a moving glint in his eyes as he said slowly, "The 3 great sword arts were also created by humans. One day, I'll create my own sword Dao." At that moment, Su Zimo understood. Since Yun Ting was defeated, he would not accept the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. This was Yun Ting's pride. In the eyes of everyone, a peerless divine power might be a tremendous opportunity. However, Yun Ting was indifferent. His sword Dao was indomitable. At that moment, Su Zimo vaguely realized that Yun Ting's future accomplishments were truly unimaginable. In the future, Yun Ting would definitely be one of the supreme experts of the upper world. How much determination and boldness did one need to abandon a peerless divine power that was within reach? Su Zimo, I'm leaving. Yun Ting looked at Su Zimo and suddenly smiled. Where to? Su Zimo asked. I don't know. Yun Ting shook his head. I might take a spin around the other immortal domains, Fiend Domain or other worlds. Perhaps I'll travel through the Trichiliocosm and see a wider world. I'll fight against even more experts and forge my heart of the sword while tempering my sword Dao. Su Zimo, you have to be careful. The moment I return, I'll still challenge you. I hope that you won't lose too badly at that time. Although Yun Ting was smiling, there was a hint of sadness and melancholy in his tone. Are you leaving now? Su Zimo asked with a frown. Yes. Yun Ting nodded. Under normal circumstances, the rank 2 of the heaven ranking would receive the rewards of Divine Firmament Palace. However, that was no longer important to Yun Ting. Given his pride, since he was already defeated, why should he linger here? I'm leaving! Yun Ting waved at Su Zimo and shifted his gaze to Yun Zhu, who was in the crowd of the Xian Immortal Kingdom cultivators. Although there were 1,000 cultivators in the Divine Firmament Hall, there were only 2 people worthy of him bidding farewell to. One was Su Zimo and the other was his sister, Book Immortal Yun Zhu. Unknowingly, Yun Zhu had already stood up and was looking at Yun Ting, who was not far away. Yun Zhu did not say anything, but there was a hint of worry and reluctance in the depths of her eyes. She was usually strict with this younger brother of hers and often scolded him to trigger him. However, at that moment, when she realized that Yun Ting was about to leave the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain and travel far away, she still felt a sense of sadness. Sister, I'm leaving, Yun Ting said softly. Yes. Yun Zhu did not say anything and merely replied softly. She lowered her head, not wanting anyone to see her gradually redden eyes as she said gently, Be careful when you're out there and don't forget to come back. When he heard that, Yun Ting felt a lump in his throat. He shrugged his head, as though he wanted to shake off the sadness in his heart. Taking a deep breath of air, he suddenly turned around and glared at Su Zimo fiercely. Su Zimo was confused by Yun Ting's fixed gaze. Su Zimo, let me warn you, don't let my sister down. Otherwise, if I return and find out that you've abandoned her, I'll definitely kill you. Su Zimo was stunned on the spot, not understanding Yun Ting's random outburst. After saying that, Yun Ting leaped up and transformed into a sword beam, speeding into the distance and disappearing from everyone's line of sight in the blink of an eye. Chapter 2586 at odds. 2586 at odds. Yun Ting left in a carefree manner without turning back. Even though he was defeated this time round, it did not deal any blow to his Dao heart. Instead, it triggered an even stronger fighting spirit. In fact, he even wanted to leave the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain and the heavenly world to roam everywhere to temper his sword Dao. He knew that that was the only way he could surpass Su Zimo. Under normal circumstances, one could travel through the vast starry skies after cultivating to the heaven immortal realm. However, the starry skies between worlds were filled with countless dangers and unknowns. It was almost certain death for heaven immortals to cross the starry skies. They would most likely be buried under the boundless starry skies before they arrived at another world. One could only protect themselves while roaming the starry skies if they cultivated to the perfected immortal realm. That was the reason why Yun Zhu was so worried when Yun Ting made that decision. However, Yun Zhu did not stop him. She knew that this was the path Yun Ting had chosen. He had abandoned all notions of life and death to press forward. This was Yun Ting's sword Dao. How carefree! Xie Qingqing could not help but praise. Although Yun Ting lost this battle, in the hearts of many cultivators, he was still the #1 sword immortal of Divine Firmament. The righteousness of the sword Dao could only be seen from Yun Ting. He would rather break than bend and perish together with fearless and indomitable spirit. He did not care about fame. His fight with Su Zimo was merely for the sake of the heaven and earth slaying sword arts, and his intent to beat the latter. He did not care about the rewards of the divine firmament immortal domain either. After the battle was over, he turned to leave, unwilling to stay here for a moment longer. Su Zimo returned to the seats of Heaven and Earth Academy. Many disciples of the academy stood up excitedly. "Senior Brother Su, you're way too strong! Congratulations, Senior Brother Su!" Everyone congratulated Su Zimo for his achievement as rank 1 of the Heaven ranking. They felt proud and honored as well. At the very least, for the next 100,000 years, Heaven and Earth Academy would definitely be ranked above the other 3 immortal sects and immortal kingdoms in the divine firmament immortal domain. "Congratulations, Junior Brother Su." Sword Immortal Yuhua looked at the victorious Su Zimo and said indifferently with a calm expression, "Yuhua, sorry to disappoint you." Su Zimo smiled gently and retaliated. He had no intention of feigning civility with Sword Immortal Yuhua. In fact, he did not even bother to address him as senior brother. The two of them had some conflicts in the academy previously. However, they were both disciples of the academy after all and could maintain a superficial relationship. This time round, Sword Immortal Yuhua actually joined forces with outsiders to attack him at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. If Chess Immortal Jun Yu had not arrived, he might have died here. Since they had already fallen out, there was no need for Su Zimo to show restraint. Yang Roxa frowned slightly in disapproval. He could naturally understand Su Zimo's anger. However, Sword Immortal Yuhua was the number 1 legacy disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy after all. If Su Zimo openly offended him, Su Zimo would face even more trouble in the academy in the future. Yang Roxa sent a voice transmission secretly. "Brother Su, why don't you endure it? Once you break through to the perfected 1 realm and become a legacy disciple, you can fall out with Sword Immortal Yuhua at that time." Su Zimo was silent. Since he dared to rebut Sword Immortal Yuhua, he had naturally made up his mind. "Junior Brother Su, watch your words!" Perfected Immortal Qin Xian hollered with a sharp expression. Sword Immortal Yuhua waved his hand gently to stop Qin Xian from continuing with his threat and said indifferently, "Junior Brother Su, you're still young, so I won't blame your brashness. However, the road ahead is long. You're far from being able to challenge me. If I don't give up the position of the number 1 legacy disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy, no one will be able to take it away, including you. The road ahead is long? Heh!" Suddenly Su Zimo laughed. "I've just divine things for you. Your days are numbered." Sword Immortal Yuhua and Zither Immortal Meng Yao's actions today had already triggered his killing intent completely. It was impolite not to reciprocate. Since these people joined forces to attack him, he no longer had to hold back. At the 9 Firmament meet, he would get the Martial Dao Prime Body to come out and give them a huge gift. Be it Zither Immortal Meng Yao or Sword Immortal Yuhua, these people were way too much of a threat to him. Although he was spared this time round, there would be even greater trouble in the future. It was better for the Martial Dao Prime Body to attack at the 9 Firmament meet to settle things once and for all. He'll resort to drastic measures and kill them until the entire world was overturned. Of course, the 9 Firmament meet would not only be filled with Paragon experts from the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain. There would also be many accomplished monks of the Pure Land of Bliss. At that time, there would also be immortal kings and heavenly kings presiding over things. Given the current strength of the Martial Dao Prime Body, he could not fight immortal kings head-on. It was both extremely dangerous and difficult if he wanted to cause trouble at the 9 Firmament meet. Naturally, Sword Immortal Yuhua did not take Su Zimo's threat to heart. Notwithstanding the fact that Su Zimo was only a Grade 8 Heaven Immortal right now, even if he cultivated to become a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal or even advance to the perfected 1 realm, there was no way Su Zimo could threaten him. Sword Immortal Yuhua smiled indifferently. "Junior Brother Su, you'll only become a joke if you speak without thinking." Pausing for a moment, he changed the topic. "No matter what, the fact that you obtained rank 1 of both the Earth and Heaven rankings is indeed celebratory news. All these years, The only other person with such accomplishments should be Fong Cantillon from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Coincidentally, the two of you are from the lower worlds and seem to know one another? Fong Cantillon has already established himself in the fiend domain. I wonder if you're still in contact with him, junior brother Su. When she heard that, Yunju frowned slightly. Those words were meant to kill. Many cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat. The expression of Immortal King Qin Yang changed as he looked at Su Zimo. Although Sword Immortal Yuhua seemed like he was congratulating Su Zimo, his words were filled with killing intent. The fact that Su Zimo was mentioned together with Fong Cantillon was also a reminder to Divine Firmament Palace that Su Zimo might be the second Fong Cantillon. Junior brother Su, come sit with me. Before Su Zimo could speak, Mo Qing suddenly beckoned to him. Although Mo Qing did not say anything, her actions were clearly to protect Su Zimo. Instantly, Sword Immortal Yuhua was filled with immense jealousy. Initially, Mo Qing was sitting with Yunju. After Su Zimo walked over, Mo Qing turned slightly and made way. Su Zimo sat in the middle of the two fairies and attracted another series of envious gazes. Ranks 1 and 2 of the Heaven ranking were already decided, but the battles for the Heaven ranking were not over yet. A few gigantic stone battlefields rose and cultivators on the Heaven ranking prediction entered one after another, including Lai Xian of the Yen Yang Immortal Kingdom as well as Yen Bingying of Heaven and Earth Academy. After a series of ranking battles, the Heaven ranking was gradually decided. The ranking battles were extremely intense. Among them, Lai Xian's Rising Nine Suns, the bloodline phenomenon of the Yen Yang Great Sun Sutra, was even more eye-catching. After Zhong Feiyu's death and Qin Gu's serious injuries, he ascended to rank 3 with utter dominance. However, with the 3 fights between Su Zimo, Yun Ting, Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu taking place first, the ranking battles later on seemed much more boring. In less than a day, the Heaven ranking of this generation was out. Chapter 2587 2587 Mystic Frost Plum Tree 2587 Mystic Frost Plum Tree. Eventually, the Heaven ranking was displayed in the firmaments with the titles of paragons displayed. Among them, the most striking was rank 1 of the Heaven ranking. Every single word shone with a golden light that illuminated the entire world. Heaven and Earth Academy, Su Zimo. Furthermore, he obtained rank 1 of the Heaven ranking as a Grade 8 Heaven Immortal. This was an unprecedented situation. The discussions in the Divine Firmament Hall did not stop. Too many things had happened at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet this time round. The gathering of the 3 great sword immortals and 4 great fairies was an unprecedented grand occasion. What was even more shocking was that these perfected immortal experts fought because of a Heaven Immortal of the Academy. In fact, many perfected immortals died in the Divine Firmament Hall. This had never happened at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet in the past. Immortal King Qin Yang pressed his hands against the air and exuded a tremendous might, suppressing the discussions of many cultivators before saying slowly, "No matter the ranking, the 100 cultivators on the Heaven ranking are the strongest and most outstanding Heaven Immortals of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain in this generation. I hope that everyone on the Heaven ranking can advance courageously and strive to break through to the perfected One realm as soon as possible. Condense your Tao fruits to become perfected immortals. As a reward for being on the Heaven ranking, everyone shall first receive a cup of fragrant tea." Immortal King Qin Yang waved his hand. The 100 beautiful maidservants that were initially standing behind him each carried a table with a steaming cup of fragrant tea on it, and sent it to the cultivators of the Heaven ranking one after another. That scene instantly attracted the envy of countless cultivators. Su Zimo received the fragrant tea and looked inside. A plum floated in the tea, emitting a unique fragrance mixed with the scorching water of the spirit spring. "This is the Mystic Frost Plum Tea," Yun Zhu explained. "There's an immortal tree in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain called the Mystic Frost Plum Tree. The plums in the tea are from the Mystic Frost Plum Tree." Back in the Jade Firmament Immortal domain, Lin Luo had told him that in the 9 Firmament Immortal domain, every immortal domain had their own unique immortal tree to absorb a large amount of heaven and earth essence qi. It was also the center of the various immortal domains. In the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain was the Peach Immortal Tree. In the Green Firmament Immortal Domain, where the human monarch, Lin Luo, and the others were located, was an Immortal Willow. As for the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, it was a Mystic Frost Plum Tree. "What's the use of the Mystic Frost Plum Tea?" Su Zimo asked. Yunshu said, "The Mystic Frost Plum Tea can help cultivators dispel the barrier of their bottlenecks. Right now, you're a Grade 8 Heaven Immortal. If you cultivate to the peak of a Grade 8 Heaven Immortal and have sufficient Heaven and Earth Essence Chi in your body, you can break through directly without looking for another opportunity. The Mystic Frost Plum Tea is the best opportunity for breakthroughs. Of course, only the top 10 of the Heaven ranking can drink the Mystic Frost Plum Tea. The remaining 90 cultivators drink the Mystic Frost Plum Leaf Tea. Although the difference is only a single word, the effect is worlds apart." Su Zimo nodded and drank the Mystic Frost Plum Tea in one gulp without hesitation. He did not even waste the plum in the tea and swallowed it. The spirit chi in the tea was rich and spewed out. As the scorching tea entered his stomach, a strange power surged into his spirit platform, invigorating Su Zimo. He had just recovered more than half of the energy he had expended after the 2 battles with Yun Ting and Zhong Feiyu. Immediately after, a chilling intent exploded in his stomach. Su Zimo's expression changed slightly. The chill came from the plum in the tea. Although it was engulfed by boiling tea, the plum contained a shocking coldness that could not be melted and spread rapidly within Su Zimo's body. In the blink of an eye, a layer of ice formed on the surface of Su Zimo's body. Even his hair and brows turned white and turned into frost. If he channeled his blood chi, he could naturally neutralize the coldness with ease. However, Su Zimo was wary and did not act rashly. Instead, he absorbed and refined it slowly with his body. A moment later, his body returned to normal. It was a pity that he had just broken through to become a Grade 8 Heaven Immortal. Even after drinking this cup of Mystic Frost Plum Tea, he could not break through immediately. As though she could read Su Zimo's mind, Yunju smiled. "Don't worry, there will be more rewards and opportunities later on." Right then, when Immortal King Qin Yang saw that everyone on the Heaven ranking had already drunk their immortal tea, he continued, "Everyone on the Heaven ranking, prepare yourself and follow me to a sacred cultivation ground in Divine Firmament Palace. As for how long you can cultivate inside, that will depend on your luck and capabilities." Immortal King Qin Yang waved his robes and tore the void apart. A cold wind gusted within and led to an unknown place. Su Zimo and the other 100 Heaven-ranking cultivators stood up and followed Immortal King Qin Yang into the void. Before long, everyone descended. Snow covered the entire place, and everything was frozen. Pissed! It was as though everyone had arrived at a frozen world. The weather was cold and the surroundings were filled with a chilling intent. Everyone could not help but shudder. More than 10 cultivators could no longer hold on and shivered in fear. Relying on the powerful physique of the Green Lotus True Body, Su Zimo could still endure the coldness. He was shocked to discover that the heaven and earth essence chi in the frozen world was terrifyingly rich. The surrounding cold chi seeped into his body through every pore, and was filled with rich heaven and earth essence chi. If he refined it, his cultivation would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. "I believe everyone has noticed it," Immortal King Qin Yang said. "Although the environment here is cruel and harsh, if you can persevere here, it will be extremely beneficial to your cultivation. There's a talisman here. If you can't hold on, all you have to do is tear it apart, and you can leave this place at any moment." As he said that, Immortal King Qin Yang waved his robes and sent the 100 talismans to the cultivators. Immortal King Qin Yang continued, "There's one more thing I have to remind you guys. It's best not to wander around casually here. The degree of coldness in every region is different. If you go too far, you might even die here, let alone cultivate." All the cultivators nodded hurriedly. In a flash, Immortal King Qin Yang tore through the void and vanished. Many cultivators assumed a lotus position hurriedly and channeled their blood chi, trying their best to absorb and refine the cold chi in their bodies to defend against the bone-chilling coldness. Su Zimo stood on the spot motionlessly and did not cultivate right away. Although the surrounding coldness was strong, it posed no threat to him. He pondered in silence, and looked in a direction in the frozen world. For some unknown reason, he had a feeling that there was something in that direction that was extremely attractive to his green lotus true body. Right then, in less than 10 breaths, some cultivators could not hold on any longer and tore their talismans apart, leaving the place. Su Zimo hesitated slightly and walked slowly in that direction. Senior brother Su Yu. When Yan Bingying saw that, she was alarmed and called out hurriedly. It's fine, I'll go take a look. Su Zimo said casually and continued forward. As he ventured deeper, he could clearly feel the coldness around him intensifying. A cold wind howled, sweeping up snowflakes that blew towards him. After walking for a long time, Su Zimo finally stopped when he felt his bloodline showing signs of freezing up. Through the heavy snowstorm, he could vaguely see a gigantic ancient tree standing in the distance ahead. It was snow-white and had lush leaves. Every single leaf was crystal clear with fruits hanging on them. The mystic frost plum tree. Chapter 2588 Grade 9 Heaven Immortal. 2588 Grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and was tempted. Naturally, his cultivation speed would be much faster cultivating in this frozen world. However, he would have to resort to some unorthodox means if he wanted to cultivate to the peak of a Grade 8 Heaven Immortal in a short period of time. The crystalline plums on the mystic frost plum tree were the best tonic for Su Zimo. Of course, this was a little rash. However, Immortal King Qin Yang did not mention this matter, nor did he say explicitly that cultivators who entered this place were not allowed to pluck the mystic frost plums. In reality, it was not because Immortal King Qin Yang was careless. Throughout history, it was already the limit for any heaven immortal that entered this place to cultivate, while defending against the surrounding cold. Even if some cultivators mustered their courage and wandered around, they would not be able to walk far. The reason why Su Zimo could arrive here was entirely because of the physique of the green lotus true body. Although the mystic frost plum tree was an immortal tree of the divine firmament immortal domain, and had lived for countless years, it was still a flora-type living being. All those living beings had to bow down in the face of the creation green lotus. Now that he had a plan in mind, Su Zimo no longer hesitated. He took a deep breath and strode in the direction of the mystic frost plum tree. Since he had decided on this matter, he could not hesitate. Once this matter was exposed, someone would definitely step in to stop him. Before long, Su Zimo arrived beneath the mystic frost plum tree. His entire body was covered by a layer of frost, and there were ice crystals on his hair and brows. Every single breath he took was filled with white fog. Su Zimo circulated his blood chi slowly to defend against the surrounding coldness. Thereafter, he leaped onto a branch and reached out to pluck the plum on it, stuffing it into his mouth. Before the plum was completely chewed, he had already plucked a second plum and placed it into his mouth. In just a few breaths, Su Zimo had already eaten more than 10 plums in succession, and was swallowing them heartily. Divine Firmament Hall. Many cultivators had yet to disperse and were waiting for the heaven-ranking cultivators to return from the secret ground. Before long, heaven-ranking cultivators appeared one after another and returned to the Divine Firmament Hall from the secret ground. Although everyone was severely frozen, their bodies were filled with spirit chi and their mental states were at their peak. As long as there was a suitable opportunity, there was a chance for them to break through. Everyone is back, right? Immortal King Qin Yang swept his gaze and asked casually. Su Zimo of the Academy has yet to return. Many disciples of the Academy said hurriedly. Immortal King Qin Yang frowned slightly and murmured. He stayed inside for so long? Immediately after, as though he sensed something, Immortal King Qin Yang was shocked and tore through the void to leave. Before long, he whisked Su Zimo back from the secret ground and threw the ladder into the Divine Firmament Hall with a terrible expression. What's going on? Everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy stood up. Humph! Immortal King Qin Yang had a terrible expression. Su Zimo, How dare you pluck the mystic frost plums on your own and eat them directly? Even after Suzimo was whisked out, he was still chewing something. His cheeks were puffed up and it was unknown how much he had eaten. However, before long, a layer of ice appeared on Suzimo's body and grew thicker. In the blink of an eye, he transformed into a gigantic ice cocoon. Suzimo was frozen within and did not move at all. Even his life force did not fluctuate. Junior brother Su! Mo Qing's expression changed slightly, and she wanted to knock open the ice cocoon to save Suzimo. Yunju had a grim expression as she pulled Mo Qing back hurriedly and said in a deep voice, "Don't be rash. If we go up and shatter this ice cocoon now, even Zimo will be shattered." "That's right." Immortal King Qingyang sneered. "Suzimo is extremely audacious. He ate dozens of mystic frost plums and will definitely die." At that point, Sword Immortal Yuhua, Meng Yao, perfected Immortal Wu Feng and the others were truly surprised and delighted. They racked their brains but could not kill Suzimo. To think that this person ended up killing himself. Immortal King Qingyang continued. "The coldness contained in the mystic frost plums is way too strong. One can only gradually digest it after cultivating to the perfected immortal realm and condensing a Dao fruit. This lad is only a grade 8 heaven immortal. He truly has a death wish for devouring dozens of mystic frost plums in one go." Sword Immortal Yuhua laughed internally, but there was a look of pity on his face. "Sigh, junior brother Su is young and impetuous. He doesn't know his limits and can only blame himself for landing in such a state. Only perfected immortals can digest it." Yang Roxa frowned. "Didn't junior brother Su and the others drink a cup of mystic frost plum tea previously? There was a mystic frost plum in it." Immortal King Qingyang sneered. "The reason why heaven immortals can drink the mystic frost plum tea is because the water used to brew the tea is a hot spring in divine Firmament Palace to begin with. It can neutralize the coldness in the mystic frost plum tea. This lad is way too greedy and chose to eat the mystic frost plums directly. That's the reason why he ended up in such a state." And Mo Qing was at a loss. Yunju frowned with disbelief in her eyes. She still could not believe it. Chess Immortal Junyu sighed gently. Even the many disciples of Heaven and Earth Academy were stunned on the spot. Suzimo had just obtained rank 1 of the Heaven ranking. To think that he would end up in such a state. The huge fluctuations between joy and sadness was too great for everyone, and they could not recover for a moment. "Ha ha!" On the side of the great Jin Immortal Kingdom, a cultivator could not hold it in any longer and burst into laughter. "What a joke! To think that the rank 1 of the Heaven ranking would die to his own greed! Throughout history, this is probably the only rank 1 of the Heaven ranking with such a short lifespan, right? How ironic! The rank 1 of the Heaven ranking actually committed suicide in public." Cultivators from sects and factions that had bad ties with Suzimo, such as the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect, stood out and mocked before long. Creak! Right then, a strange sound came from the motionless ice cocoon in the Divine Firmament Hall, as though something had cracked. Instantly, the discussions around them turned hushed. Everyone looked over and their expressions changed. A thin crack appeared on the ice cocoon. Under countless gazes, the crack expanded and extended continuously, covering the entire ice cocoon before long. Wah! Many cultivators widened their eyes. The expression of Immortal King Qingyang turned bewildered as well. Through the cracks of the ice cocoon, he could vaguely sense a wisp of life force fluctuation. Furthermore, the fluctuation was getting more obvious. How was that possible? Could that lad be alive still? Boom! After a momentary silence, accompanied by a deafening bang, the ice cocoon suddenly exploded and a figure broke free, emitting an extremely powerful aura. Steam rose from Suzimo's body and every single breath he took was filled with rich heaven and earth essence qi. His entire body was enveloped by heaven and earth essence qi and nourished continuously. Everyone swept their spirit consciousnesses and could not help but gasp. A grade 9 heaven immortal. Relying on dozens of mystic frost plums, Su Zimo broke through from the realm of a Grade 8 Heaven Immortal to become a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal in less than 2 hours. Chapter 2589 2589 Dharmic Tao Stele 2589 Dharmic Tao Stele. Even though they saw it personally, everyone still felt that it was surreal. Could this be considered a miracle? For the Heaven Immortals present, even if they were geniuses, it would take them thousands or tens of thousands of years to advance from a Grade 8 Heaven Immortal to a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal. The person before them took less than 2 hours. Furthermore, even if many cultivators knew of this method, they would not dare to attempt it. Mystic frost plums that could only be absorbed and refined by perfected immortals, who would dare to eat them even if they were asked to? Furthermore, he had consumed dozens of them in one go. Immortal King Qin Yang looked at Su Zimo and frowned with a bewildered expression. Even with his knowledge and experience, he could not figure out the reason for it right away. Under normal circumstances, Heaven Immortals were indeed unable to absorb and refine the mystic frost plums. As Immortal King Qin Yang said, the mystic frost plums could only be consumed by Heaven Immortals after they were soaked in the hot spring water nurtured within Divine Firmament Palace to expel their coldness. In reality, the bloodline of the Green Lotus True Body replaced the use of Divine Firmament Palace's hot spring. To be precise, the bloodline of the Green Lotus True Body was even stronger than Divine Firmament Palace's hot spring. That was the reason why Su Zimo was able to consume dozens of mystic frost plums and refine the energy within safely. At the same time, the mystic frost plum tea resolved his bottleneck, allowing him to break through and advance to become a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal. The excitement and joy that Sword Immortal Yuhua, Meng Yao and the others felt vanished instantly. All of them had grim expressions and remained silent. Many cultivators of Heaven and Earth Academy shouted. The three fairies heaved a sigh of relief. Su Zimo broke free and bowed slightly in the direction of Immortal King Qin Yang. He cupped his fists. It's all thanks to the blessings of Divine Firmament Palace and Immortal King Qin Yang that I was able to obtain this opportunity. When she heard that, Yunzhu pursed her lips and smiled, thinking to herself that he was smart. Given the status of Divine Firmament Palace and Immortal King Qin Yang, it was naturally inappropriate for them to seek accountability from Su Zimo. After all, there had never been a precedent for something like this. Prior to this, there were no rules that prohibited cultivators who entered the secret ground from plucking the mystic frost plums. Indeed, when Immortal King Qin Yang heard that, he could not make things difficult, and could only suppress the anger in his heart. He harumphed coldly and grit his teeth. It's good that you know. Never forget this opportunity given to you by Divine Firmament Palace. Of course. Su Zimo nodded. Immortal King Qin Yang took another deep breath and said, Cultivators on the Heaven ranking, follow me to the Enlightenment Field of Divine Firmament Palace to browse through the Dharmic Tao experiences left behind by the predecessors of Divine Firmament Palace. In the Enlightenment Field of Divine Firmament Palace, there were many Dharmic Tao experiences left behind by perfected immortals of Divine Firmament Palace. Almost all the Heaven Immortals on the Heaven ranking were at the peak of Grade 9. They had just drunk immortal tea and cultivated in the secret ground. If they browsed through the Dharmic Taos left behind by the predecessors, there was a high chance that they could find an opportunity to break through and condense a Tao fruit to advance to the perfected immortal realm. Ever since the establishment of the Heaven ranking, in every generation, there would always be Heaven Immortals who made use of this series of rewards to become perfected immortals. Su Zimo had just broken through to become a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal and had yet to cultivate to the peak, so he was unable to attempt to break through to the perfected One realm. However, the many Dharmic Tao experiences left behind by Divine Firmament Palace's predecessors would still be of great help to him. After all, the path taken by the Martial Tao Prime Body was completely different from the path taken by the Green Lotus True Body. The Martial Tao Prime Body condensed the true Martial Tao Body. He was not of much help to the Green Lotus True Body when it came to condensing a Tao fruit and breaking through to the perfected One realm. At that moment, twilight was approaching. Many cultivators followed their respective sects and factions and gradually dispersed, returning to their residences to rest. The divine firmament immortal meat would continue for a few more days, and it would be convenient for many cultivators to trade and exchange their insights on Dharmic Das. However, for many cultivators, the divine firmament immortal meat was no longer lively. Su Zimo was in no hurry to follow behind everyone from the heaven ranking. Instead, he came to Imoching's side and took out 2 mystic frost plums from his storage bag, stuffing them into her hands secretly. "Thank you for everything, senior sister," Su Zimo said softly. Thereafter, he came to Yunju's side and took out 2 mystic frost plums as well. He secretly handed them over and expressed his thanks. Immediately after, he gave Junyu another 2 mystic frost plums. Earlier on in the secret ground, the sudden appearance of immortal King Qin Yang gave him no time to pluck more. He could only grab a handful casually and hide them in his storage bag. Coincidentally, there were 6 of them. Now that everyone had left, he distributed the 6 mystic frost plums to the 3 fairies. The reason why he could survive the divine firmament immortal meat this time round was because the 3 fairies stepped in. It was naturally nothing much for him to give away the 6 mystic frost plums. However, the 3 fairies had different thoughts after obtaining 2 mystic frost plums each. With an indifferent expression, Junyu did not think too much about it, and merely expressed her thanks. Imoching lowered her head slightly and looked at the 2 mystic frost plums in her palm in deep thought. Yunju witnessed Su Zimo's actions. When she saw him stuffing the plums to her stealthily while thanking her with utmost sincerity, she felt both angry and amused. However, she could not say anything explicitly. After doing that, Su Zimo caught up to everyone on the heaven ranking and headed to the Enlightenment Field of Divine Firmament Palace together. Large steles were erected one after another in the Enlightenment ground. Every single stele was etched with dense words. At the end of the words were the names of the predecessors. Su Zimo chose a random stele and read through its contents before nodding to himself. A perfected immortal named Dao Qing recorded in detail on the stele how he condensed his Dao fruit, how he broke through to the perfected One realm, and even the process of tribulation transcendence. Most of the time, Su Zimo felt nothing when he looked at them. However, some of the explanations were extremely beneficial to him. This time round, Su Zimo did not alarm the martial Dao prime body. The contents recorded on the stele were how to condense the Dao fruit and attain the Dharmic Dao of a perfected immortal. It was useless for the martial Dao prime body. Su Zimo secretly held the Bodhi seed in his hands as he browsed through everything. Although he could not break through right now, the Dharmic Dao experiences were etched in his mind and would be extremely important for his future breakthrough to the perfected One realm. Su Zimo knew his situation. Under normal circumstances, cultivators would usually have their own inclinations towards a certain Dharmic Dao direction. For example, Yunting specialized in the sword Dao. Imoching was obsessed with the painting Dao. Junyu specialized in the chess Dao. However, Su Zimo's situation was extremely special. His body and bloodline belonged to the creation Green Lotus. In terms of the Dharmic Dao he cultivated, he possessed the taboo mystic classic of the Buddhist monasteries, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, as well as other taboo mystic classics of the immortal sects such as the Jade Pure Jade Manual, the Void Thunder Manual, and the 3 Great Sword Arts. In recent years, he had even cultivated a taboo mystic classic of the Fiend sects, the Heaven Burial Sutra. In fact, in the demonic Dao, he even cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness that Dai Yu created for him. Right now, many powerful divine powers he relied on came from that supreme demon classic. Therefore, it was extremely difficult and complicated for him to condense a Dao fruit. Chapter 2590-2599 Firmament Meat. 2599 Firmament Meat. The divine firmament immortal meat would last for a month. However, after the ranking battle of the heaven ranking, the divine firmament immortal meat did not have much of a stir for the next period of time and was relatively calm. Before the divine firmament immortal meat ended, many cultivators dispersed and returned to their sections. This divine firmament immortal meat caused a huge stir in the entire 9 firmament immortal domain. The fight between the four great fairies was secondary. Yunting's defeat was enough to shock countless cultivators as well. However, the gossip that truly attracted countless cultivators to discuss fervently was the various rumors about the four great fairies and the rank one of the heaven ranking. In the enlightenment field of divine Firmament Palace, Su Zimo browsed through the Dharmic Tao experiences left behind by the predecessors before returning to Heaven and Earth Academy to continue his seclusion. Another month passed. This day, Yang Roxu and Princess Scarlet Rainbow arrived hand in hand. Tao Yao and Lu Ping welcomed the two of them into the cave abode. Brother Yang, Scarlet Rainbow. Su Zimo came out of seclusion and invited the two of them to take a seat. Yang Roxu asked. The 9 Firmament meet is in a few days. How are your preparations, Brother Su? There's nothing for me to prepare. Su Zimo smiled. The 9 Firmament meet is an event catered for perfected immortal experts. Right now, I'm only a heaven immortal. I'm just tagging along with the academy to join the crowd. The 9 Firmament meet was a grand event held by the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss. At this grand event, the perfected immortal and Arhat rankings would be listed to determine the supreme perfected immortal of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and the supreme Arhat of the Pure Land of Bliss. The reason why Su Zimo was qualified to tag along with the academy was mainly because he was rank 1 of the heaven ranking in this generation in the divine Firmament Immortal Domain. To be precise, the 100 heaven immortals on the heaven ranking were all qualified to follow their sects and factions to the 9 Firmament meet and participate in this rare event of the heavenly world. However, in reality, perfected immortal experts of the major sects and factions were the absolute protagonists of this event. Don't be careless, Princess Scarlet Rainbow said with a fake smile. After the divine Firmament Immortal meet, there were all sorts of rumors about you and the 4 great fairies. Right now, you've already become the target of many cultivators of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain. How is that possible? Su Zimo burst into laughter. Princess Scarlet Rainbow smiled. Of course. In the hearts of the cultivators, the 4 great fairies are high and mighty existences that can't be sullied. But now, not only are you involved with them, you took on 4 of them at one go. Who could endure that? Su Zimo shook his head helplessly. That's not true. Those are just groundless rumors. Rumors spread like wildfire. The more they spread, the more people will naturally believe them, Princess Scarlet Rainbow said. Yang Roxu pondered for a moment. Even without that reason, there's a chance that some people will come and challenge you. Since it's called the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, it means that there will be 9 rank 1s of the heaven rankings. All of them are paragons and monster incarnates who are prideful. It's inevitable that there will be conflicts and fights. In any case, you have to be mentally prepared and not be careless. Su Zimo nodded. 2 figures flashed through his mind. Back in the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain, he encountered Prince Tian and Princess Lang Qianqian. There was a high chance that he would encounter these 2 at the 9 Firmament meet this time round. Yang Roxu continued. In addition, the 9 Firmament meet this time round is a little different from the past. After all, there has been constant turmoil in the Fiend domain in recent years. The reappearance of 2 peerless fiends in the heavenly world and a supreme monster incarnate like Desolate Marshal have attracted the attention of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss. From what I know, at the 9 Firmament meet this time round, every immortal domain will have at least a supreme immortal king holding down the fort. It should be the same for the Pure Land of Bliss. Under normal circumstances, the major sects would only send a single immortal king to lead their factions at the 9 Firmament meet. After all, the 9 Firmament meet was mainly a fight between perfected immortal experts. But now, because of the commotion from the Fiend domain, the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss were on guard and even sent supreme immortal kings to hold down the fort. Su Zimo was silent. That way, it would be even more dangerous for the Martial Dao Prime Body to cause a stir at the 9 Firmament meet. If there were too many Immortal King experts or Supreme Immortal Kings holding down the fort, he might not be able to escape unscathed even with the help of the Hell Suppression tripod. During this period of time, Su Zimo did not disturb the martial Tao prime body. The martial Tao prime body cultivated in seclusion in Avicii to deduce his cultivation technique. He had already cultivated to the most critical point. If he could comprehend it, there was a high chance he could unlock the future Tao of the martial Tao prime body and see the other end of the road. Su Zimo asked, "Which immortal king will be leading the academy?" "It's said that the sect master asked the Grand Elder to lead the group," Yang Roxa said. "Although the Grand Elder is old, his cultivation realm is still present, and he's also a supreme immortal king. With that, if anything happens to Heaven and Earth Academy, we can deal with it with ease. I heard that Immortal King Qin Yang of Divine Firmament Palace will be leading the cultivators of the 4 immortal sects and 3 immortal kingdoms this time round." Immortal King Qin Yang was also a supreme immortal king. Su Zimo remained silent. According to Yang Roxu, every immortal domain would have a supreme immortal king holding down the fort. And now, there were 2 alone from the Divine Firmament immortal domain, Immortal King Qin Yang and the Grand Elder of the Academy. In other words, there would be at least 10 supreme immortal kings in the 9 Firmament immortal domain, and even more ordinary immortal kings. On the side of the Pure Land of Bliss, there were 4 continents. Purvavidaha in the east, Jambudvipa in the south, Aparagodania in the west and Uttarakuru in the north. If nothing went wrong, every continent would send out supreme heavenly kings as well. There were at least 10 supreme immortal kings alone. To think that so many Grotto Heaven realm experts would be attracted to this 9 firmament meet. Unless an emperor descended, no one would be able to cause trouble at the 9 firmament meet. Even if an emperor appeared, he might not be able to cause much trouble. There was a high chance that there were some emperor-level immortal and Buddha experts in the darkness of the 9 firmament meet paying attention to this event to prevent any accidents. Even so, Su Zimo had high hopes for the 9 firmament meet. He did not know if the human monarch and immortal Queen Linglong of the Battle Kingdom of the Green Firmament immortal domain would appear or if the human monarch's injuries were healed. If he had the chance to meet immortal Queen Linglong this time round, he would definitely thank her for her life-saving grace. Perhaps, he might be able to obtain some clues about the assassination attempt when he ascended from immortal Queen Linglong. He did not know if he would have the chance to meet some other old friends of Tianhuang mainland as well at this 9 firmament meet. 3 days later. A few bells sounded in succession from Heaven and Earth Academy. The 9 firmament meet was about to begin. It was the bell to gather the legacy disciples of the Academy. Many legacy disciples came out of seclusion one after another and galloped through the Academy, turning into streaks of light. Under the envious gazes of countless inner and outer sect disciples, they gathered at the entrance of the sect. Su Zimo walked out of his cave abode and sped over as well. He had no intention of bringing Lu Ping and Tao Yao along this time round. Tao Yao had appeared in the Jade Firmament immortal domain before after all. If he was recognized at the 9 firmament meet this time round, it was inevitable that there would be unnecessary trouble. The Grand Elder was leading the group for Heaven and Earth Academy this time round. Of the hundreds of legacy disciples, Sword Immortal Yu Hua was naturally the leader. Amo Qing did not choose to enter seclusion in her cave abode either, and was prepared to follow the Academy to the 9 firmament meet. The moment Su Zimo arrived at the entrance of the Academy, Amo Qing caught sight of him and beckoned to him. Chapter 2591-2591 Builder Tree Mountain Range 2591 Builder Tree Mountain Range. Many disciples of the Academy had different expressions when they saw Fairy Amo Qing call Su Zimo over. The disciples of the Academy could long tell that Amo Qing clearly treated Su Zimo different from her fellow sect mates. However, it did not seem like there was any more intimate relationship between Fairy Amo Qing and Su Zimo. It seemed like Fairy Amo Qing was merely taking better care of Su Zimo. At the very least, the two of them had never shown any intimate actions. However, the fact that painting immortal Amo Qing was willing to give him special treatment was enviable enough. Most legacy disciples of the Academy knew their limits. Although they had admired Amo Qing for a long time, they had never harbored any improper thoughts. However, it was different for Sword Immortal Yu Hua. All the disciples of the Academy knew that Sword Immortal Yuhua had courted Fairy Mo Qing painstakingly for many years. Fairy Mo Qing's attitude towards Sword Immortal Yuhua had always been neutral. Ever since the Divine Firmament Immortal meet, Fairy Mo Qing did not even greet Sword Immortal Yuhua when she saw him. Everyone could tell that there was no longer any possibility between the two of them. Right now, they were merely maintaining a relationship as fellow sect mates. Sword Immortal Yuhua did not seem to have seen Mo Qing and Su Zimo walking together. He looked into the distance with a cold expression and remained silent. Senior sister, your cultivation. Arriving before Mo Qing, Su Zimo swept his spirit consciousness and could vaguely sense that senior sister Mo Qing seemed to be different from back when she was at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. He was already a grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Even without using the 6-tusk divine strength, the strength of his spirit consciousness had already touched the threshold of the perfected One realm, and he could naturally sense the slight changes in Mo Qing. Yes. Mo Qing nodded. My cultivation has improved and I've already cultivated to the Paradise Void realm of the perfected One realm. Pausing for a moment, she continued. The 2 mystic frost plums you gave me were quite useful. Thank you. It's fine, it's nothing much. Su Zimo smiled. The perfected One realm was divided into Convergence, Celestial Being, Hollow Nether and Paradise Void. Apart from the 2 mystic frost plums that Su Zimo gave her, the reason why Mo Qing was able to cultivate to the Paradise Void realm was because she had another breakthrough in her comprehension of the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend diagram. Previously, she had only comprehended the God figure of the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend diagram. But now, she had comprehended another of them, the Fiend figure. There was a reason why Mo Qing chose to skip the Ghost and Immortal figures to comprehend the Fiend figure first. However, the 9 Firmament meet was about to begin, and she did not have the time or opportunity to verify her thoughts. Before long, hundreds of perfected immortals from the Academy were already gathered in front of the sect. Apart from some perfected immortals who were at a critical juncture of their cultivation and could not leave, most of the legacy disciples were prepared to head to the 9 Firmament meet. Most of them were not qualified to fight for the perfected immortal ranking. However, the fight between top experts for the perfected immortal ranking was a grand event that could not be missed for everyone. They would definitely learn something by watching the fights between the top perfected immortals and verifying it against their own learnings. Let's go! The Grand Elder of the Academy waved his hand and arrived at Divine Firmament Palace first through the Academy's teleportation formation to gather with the other sects and factions. For the 9 Firmament meet, representatives of the immortal domains would usually meet to head there together. Apart from the 3 immortal kingdoms and 4 immortal sects, there were also some aristocratic families of the immortal Dao, sect masters of Earth-grade sects, experts at the elder level and itinerant perfected immortal cultivators gathered in Divine Firmament Palace. Divine Firmament Palace itself had 1,000 perfected immortal followers. There were close to 10,000 perfected immortals gathered in Divine Firmament Palace this time round, and it was a massive commotion. Indeed, only immortal kings could suppress such a massive group. Apart from Immortal King Qin Yang and the Grand Elder of the Academy, the other heaven-grade sects were only represented by ordinary immortal kings. Coupled with the 4 ordinary immortal kings sent by Divine Firmament Palace, there were 2 supreme immortal kings, 10 ordinary immortal kings and close to 10,000 perfected immortal experts this time round. Coupled with the heaven immortals of the heaven ranking as well as the personal disciples of some perfected immortals and immortal kings, the Divine Firmament Palace group had already exceeded 10,000 people. When Immortal King Qin Yang saw that the various factions had gathered, he led everyone onto the teleportation formation and disappeared from Divine Firmament Palace. Builder Tree Mountain Range. The Builder Tree was a divine tree of the heavenly world and was located in the center. It was connected to the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, the Pure Land of Bliss and the Fiend Domain. It was precisely because of the existence of the Builder Tree that it could absorb the heaven and earth essence chi in the vast starry skies, making the heavenly world suitable for various living beings to cultivate and grow. For example, the Dragon Abyss star that Su Zimo first descended on was located in the starry skies outside the heavenly world. It did not have any immortal trees or spirit items. Therefore, the heaven and earth essence chi was thin and was not suitable for cultivating. The Builder Tree mountain range was a mountain range closest to the Builder Tree on the side of the 9 Firmament Immortal domain. It was semicircular, as though it wanted to surround the Builder Tree. The 9 Firmament meet that was held once every 100,000 years was held on the Builder Tree mountain range. Recently, the Builder Tree mountain range had suddenly become lively. Cultivators from all over the 9 Firmament Immortal domain were gathered here. Initially, there were all sorts of living beings and beasts in the mountain range. During this period of time, they had long hidden themselves and did not dare to appear. At the peak of the Builder Tree mountain range, on a teleportation formation, accompanied by a blinding light, many cultivators suddenly descended. There were more than 10,000 of them. Their leader had a terrifying aura and emitted a shuddering might. Immortal King Qin Yang and the group of people from Divine Firmament Palace had arrived at the Builder Tree mountain range. Standing on the peak of the Builder Tree, Su Zimo looked in the direction of the Builder Tree instinctively. Although he was long prepared, he was still shocked. On the distant horizon, an ancient tree rose from the ground. Its thick trunk penetrated the clouds, as though it had already extended to the boundless starry skies outside. The ancient tree was like an ancient totem that pierced through the world. The gigantic leaves were dense and covered the skies. The ancient tree connected heaven and earth, and stood deep underground. Countless roots connected to the heavenly world, and its trunk stood in the clouds above the firmaments, looking down on all living beings. Any living being would feel incomparably tiny in the face of the towering ancient tree. This scene was way too shocking. Even perfected immortal experts and supreme immortal kings like Immortal King Qin Yang would feel insignificant in the face of the heavenly world's Builder Tree, let alone Su Zimo. This ancient tree had witnessed too much history. It had experienced countless flames of war and the sands of time. The masters of the heavenly world had changed time and again, but it was the only one that stood upright like an ancient totem. At least half of the tens of thousands of cultivators from Divine Firmament Palace this time round were seeing the Builder Tree for the first time. The cultivators were shocked and knelt down uncontrollably against the might of the Builder Tree, prostrating. This was also a mystical aspect of the Builder Tree. Almost all living beings would kneel down the first time they saw the Builder Tree. Only emperors could defend against the massive might of the Builder Tree that was consolidated from the sands of time. Chapter 2592 Targeting the Builder Tree. 2592 Targeting the Builder Tree. Among the 10,000 cultivators of Divine Firmament Palace, be it perfected immortals or heaven immortals, as long as they were seeing the Builder Tree for the first time, their minds would suffer a powerful blow. Their Tao hearts would be shocked, and they could not help but kneel down. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the 10,000 cultivators of Divine Firmament Palace knelt. Among them, Immortal King Qin Yang, the Grand Elder of the Academy, Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Zither Immortal Meng Yao, and the others stood on the spot with calm expressions. They had seen the Builder Tree before. Although they could still sense the impact of the Builder Tree, they would not kneel. The feeling was more like a deterrence, an awe for many living beings from the Builder Tree. The Builder Tree seemed to possess sentience. As long as it was the first time a living being was seeing it, they would have to express sufficient respect. Among the 4 great fairies, Chess Immortal Junyu, Book Immortal Yun Zhu, and Zither Immortal Meng Yao had seen the Builder Tree before and were naturally not affected much. As for Mo Qing, she cultivated in the academy all year round. This was also the first time she had seen the Builder Tree. She was shocked and could not help but kneel down. Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Meng Yao, and the others looked at the surrounding cultivators kneeling with faint smiles. Those cultivators were not kneeling to them. However, they still felt a strange sense of superiority. Right then, Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Meng Yao, and the others noticed someone at almost the same time. Someone who should have knelt on the ground stood upright on the spot and glared at the Builder Tree fixedly in deep thought. Su Zimo. Why did he not kneel down? Sword Immortal Yu Hua frowned. The Divine Firmament Immortal domain was far away from the Builder Tree mountain range. There was no way Su Zimo could come into contact with the Builder Tree before he became an Earth Immortal. After he cultivated to the Earth Immortal realm, he joined Heaven and Earth Academy and had been cultivating in the Academy. When did he come into contact with the Builder Tree? The fact that Su Zimo did not kneel down made Sword Immortal Yuhua a little displeased. However, he did not think too much about it and merely instinctively thought that Su Zimo had seen the Builder Tree before. After all, even Immortal King experts would have to kneel and pay their respects when they first saw the Builder Tree, let alone Su Zimo, who was only a grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Sword Immortal Yuhua did not know that in reality, this was indeed Su Zimo's first time seeing the Builder Tree. The moment he saw the Builder Tree, the shock in his heart indeed made him feel like prostrating. However, immediately after, a strong reaction was triggered in his Green Lotus true body. If he had not suppressed it tightly, the bloodline phenomenon of the Green Lotus true body would have burst forth against the might of the Builder Tree. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. The creation Green Lotus that was known to be the only one in the world was indeed terrifying. Even against the ancient Builder Tree, he was unwilling to submit, and even had the intention of challenging and suppressing the other party. Of course, given the current cultivation realm of the Green Lotus true body, there was no way he could fight against the Builder Tree. However, it was impossible for the Builder Tree to make the Green Lotus true body submit as well. However, the strange thing was that the Builder Tree did not react to the Green Lotus true body's resistance. According to the rumors, the Builder Tree had a spirit, and should have some special reaction when it sensed the provocation of the Green Lotus true body. Zimo, when did you come to see the Builder Tree? Right then, Yunju's voice sounded from behind. Ah. Su Zimo was slightly stunned, but he reacted quickly and lied casually. I once entered this place by mistake and took a look from afar. Everyone says that the Builder Tree has a spirit. Is that true? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly asked. Yunju was a learned person and knew everything about history. Her understanding of the Builder Tree was definitely far superior to others. She would definitely be able to provide an answer regarding this matter. Yunshu nodded and said, Of course it's true. The Builder Tree is indestructible and even emperors can't break it. The Builder Tree is awake most of the time. Although the heaven and earth essence chi around it is extremely rich, no living being can approach it, let alone cultivate in the vicinity. That was also one of Su Zimo's questions. Since the Builder Tree was the core of the heavenly world and was the key to absorbing heaven and earth essence chi, wouldn't it be much easier to cultivate in the vicinity of the Builder Tree? One's cultivation speed could increase by 100, 1,000 times or even more. Yunju continued. However, the Builder Tree will sleep for a period of time every 100,000 years, ranging from a month to a few years. When the Builder Tree is asleep, living beings won't be attacked by it when they approach. Su Zimo was enlightened. In that case, the reason why the 9 Firmament meet is held here every 100,000 years is because of this as well. Exactly. Yunshu nodded. For example, the perfected immortals on the perfected immortal ranking and arhats on the arhat ranking have the chance to cultivate beneath the Builder Tree. Even if they only get to cultivate for a month, it's equivalent to 10,000 years of effort. In that case, it could explain why the Builder Tree did not react to the provocation of the Green Lotus true body earlier on. It was because the Builder Tree was in a deep sleep right now. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the Builder Tree not far away in silence. A glint gradually flashed through his eyes. Although he could not brazenly head down to the Builder Tree to cultivate in front of everyone. However, with the Green Lotus true body, he could also slowly absorb and refine the life force energy in the body of the Builder Tree true body if he stood on the peak of the Builder Tree. He could steal the life force of the Builder Tree. That thought was truly audacious. Even Su Zimo was shocked when he realized what he was thinking about. However, he calmed down before long. This was a rare opportunity. He had just broken through to become a grade 9 Heaven Immortal, and it would take him at least 1,000 years to cultivate to the peak of a grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Now that the 9 Firmament meet was held and everyone's attention was focused on the fight for the perfected Immortal ranking and the Arhat ranking, he could secretly absorb and refine the Builder Tree. Even a trickle of life force from the Builder Tree would be enough for him to cultivate to the peak of a grade 9 heaven immortal. If he seized this opportunity, he might be able to touch the barrier of the perfected one realm. What are you thinking about? Why is your heart beating so quickly? Yunju glanced sideways at Su Zimo with a strange expression. And nothing. Su Zimo chuckled embarrassedly and changed the topic. There should be some candidates who are more or less confirmed to be the top 10 of the perfected immortal ranking and Arhat ranking at the 9 Firmament meet this time round, right? Yunju could tell that Su Zimo was hiding something but did not ask further. She merely rolled her eyes at him. There are only 10 spots on the perfected immortal ranking and Arhat ranking respectively. Take the perfected immortal ranking for example. Typically, a supreme monster incarnate will appear in each of the 9 immortal domains and occupy a spot. Just like that, 9 of the 10 spots are gone. There will be one remaining spot to fight for. However, the perfected immortal ranking this time round is a little special. At that point, Yunju paused for a moment and looked at Su Zimo with a fake smile. Most of the perfected immortals of the Jade Firmament immortal domain have been killed by a certain somebody, so they should not be able to fight for the perfected immortal ranking. Chapter 2593 Hostile 2593 Hostile. The certain somebody Yunju was referring to was naturally the martial Dao prime body. Su Zimo coughed gently and did not reply. Right then, a woman in the crowd walked over. Before she arrived, she called out softly, Su Zimo. The woman did not have any makeup on and was extremely beautiful. Her long hair was tied into a bun, and she wore a wide Taoist robe, but it could not conceal her graceful figure. A gigantic square chessboard hung on the woman's back. Although it looked a little strange, it formed a unique aura with the woman. Chess Immortal Jun Yu. People like the 4 great fairies were the center of attention no matter where they went. Now that painting Immortal Mo Qin, Book Immortal Yunju, Chess Immortal Jun Yu and Su Zimo were gathered together, they attracted countless gazes. When Yunju saw Jun Yu walking over, she smiled and greeted her. Mo Qin nodded slightly to Jun Yu as well. Although the 3 of them did not have much of a relationship previously, they fought side by side at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. That experience reduced the distance between the 3 of them and increased their trust. How are your preparations, fellow Taoist? Yunshu said. From what I know, the perfected immortal ranking competition this time round will be extremely intense. Apart from you, Qin Su of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain, Lin Lei of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain, and Zhuo Wuchen of the White Firmament Immortal Domain are not easy to deal with. Initially, Song Xian of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain was not to be underestimated as well. However, he was killed by Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain. Jun Yu replied indifferently. If it was 1,000 years ago, I'm confident that I would be ranked top 3 on the perfected immortal ranking. But now, I'm going to fight for the title of the Supreme Perfected Immortal with all my might. Amazing! Yunju praised sincerely. Her confidence and boldness were far superior to others. The reason why Junyu dared to say that was because 1,000 years ago, Immortal Queen Linglong imparted to her the 9 Linglong Zugzwangs and she had benefited immensely. Furthermore, during the Divine Firmament Immortal meet, Su Zimo resolved the 8th Linglong Zugzwang. She witnessed the entire process personally and gained some insights, causing her combat strength to increase once more. Fellow Taoist Jun Yu, were you calling for me earlier on? Su Zimo asked. Jun Yu nodded and removed the astral chessboard from her back. Come, the 9 Firmament meet has yet to begin. Let's play a few rounds. Su Zimo was a little helpless. It was no wonder why Jun Yu was the chess immortal. Before the 9 Firmament meet, most perfected immortals were conserving their energy. However, this person even wanted to play chess against him. The 9 Firmament meet had yet to begin, and there were many people in the vicinity. It was not appropriate for Su Zimo to absorb and refine the Builder Tree secretly. Since he had nothing on right now, he agreed to it. He played chess with Jun Yu while paying attention to the movements of the other immortal domains, and the pure land of bliss. Apart from the divine firmament immortal domain, cultivators of the verdant firmament and elixir firmament immortal domains had already arrived. There were also more than 10,000 cultivators from the two immortal domains. As Yang Ruoxu had said, the Jade Firmament and Elixir Firmament immortal domains also had supreme immortal kings leading their groups, and there were more than 10 ordinary immortal kings. Among the two immortal domains, two women were rather eye-catching. Both of them were at the perfected one realm and were peerless beauties, comparable to the four great fairies. Yunshu said, Fairy Jiao Lan of the Verdant Firmament Immortal Domain and Fairy Ling Huang of the Elixir Firmament Immortal Domain are both popular candidates for the perfected immortal ranking, Junyu said as she played chess with Su Zimo. Jiao Lan's methods are not weak. I've fought her before and it's not a problem for her to be ranked on the perfected immortal ranking. However, it's hard to say for Ling Huang. Pausing for a moment, Junyu looked at Yunzhu. If you're willing to fight for the perfected immortal ranking with all your might, you'll definitely be above Ling Huang. We'll see. Yunzhu smiled gently. She was not interested in being on the perfected immortal ranking. Immediately after, the green firmament immortal domain arrived. Su Zimo looked up and searched the crowd of the green firmament immortal domain. Junyu stopped playing and looked over as well. Before long, Su Zimo caught sight of Lin Lei and Lin Luo. Not far away from the two of them stood a dignified and beautiful middle-aged woman. The moment Su Zimo caught sight of the beautiful middle-aged woman, the latter seemed to have sensed something and looked over as well. Their gazes met in midair. Instantly, a thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. This must be Fairy Ling Long of Tianhuang Mainland, who was also Immortal Queen Ling Long of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain and Battle Kingdom right now. He had never seen the true appearance of Immortal Queen Ling Long before. Back when he ascended, he hid in the Hell Suppression tripod and did not have the chance to witness it either. However, the moment he saw the dignified beauty, Su Zimo was certain that this was Immortal Queen Ling Long. At the same time, Immortal Queen Ling Long recognized Su Zimo. Initially, Immortal Queen Ling Long exuded a pressure unique to immortal kings. However, her gaze suddenly softened when she saw Su Zimo. Just as Su Zimo was about to get up, the voice of Immortal Queen Ling Long sounded in his mind. There's no need for us to acknowledge one another now. Don't be in a hurry to return to the sect after the 9 firmament meet is over. At that time, I'll come and look for you. Ling Long Immortal King seemed to be wary and did not acknowledge Su Zimo or interact much. She retracted her gaze after sending a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. On the other hand, Lin Luo was delighted when she saw Su Zimo. She raised her arm and beckoned over passionately. Su Zimo nodded with a smile. When Lin Lei saw that, he looked a little displeased. He pulled Lin Luo and walked a few steps faster, squeezing into the crowd and disappearing. Thereafter, the Vantage Firmament Immortal Domain and Purple Firmament Immortal Domain arrived. Yun Zhu casually mentioned the popular candidates of these two immortal domains for the perfected immortal ranking. In the Purple Firmament Immortal Domain, Su Zimo even caught sight of someone familiar. Prince Xingtian. At that moment, Su Zimo and the 3 great fairies were gathered together, and were extremely striking on the side of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Xingtian noticed Su Zimo quickly and his gaze turned cold. He raised his head slightly towards Su Zimo with a provocative gaze. Su Zimo was unmoved and continued playing chess, as though he had not seen anything. After that was the White Firmament Immortal Domain. Yunshu said, Among the perfected immortals of the White Firmament Immortal Domain, Zhuo Wuqin should be the strongest. His sword Dao is even above sword Immortal Yu Hua. Apart from him, Yun Mubai of the White Firmament Immortal Domain's Yun Country is also one of the popular candidates this time round. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Yun Country of the White Firmament Immortal Domain. He did not know if there was any connection between the Yun Country and King Yunyu. Similarly, there was someone he was familiar with in the White Firmament Immortal Domain. Princess Lang Qianqian, a grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Although she was not as provocative as Prince Xingtian, she exuded a fighting spirit as well when she caught sight of Su Zimo. Su Zimo had no doubt that Lang Qianqian would definitely challenge him if she had the chance. Back in the Pure Jade Manual, the combat strength of Prince Tian and Princess Lang Qianqian were restricted. They were indignant that they were suppressed by Su Zimo. In fact, the two of them were too embarrassed to mention such disgraces to outsiders. Now that they saw Su Zimo at the 9 Firmament meet, the two of them would naturally want to get payback. As time passed by, 7 of the 9 immortal domains arrived. A moment later, the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain cultivators arrived. Suddenly, a warning flashed in Su Zimo's mind. There was a strong hostility from the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain that even triggered his spirit perception. Chapter 2594 Terrifying Monk. 2594 Terrifying Monk. Su Zimo looked up expressionlessly. In the crowd of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain, a black-robed man stood at the front of the many perfected immortals behind the Immortal King experts. He was tall and mighty, emitting a violent and savage aura. The black-robed man glared at Su Zimo with a burning gaze. Suddenly, he grinned and did not conceal the hostility in his eyes. This person looked unfamiliar and was at the Perfected One realm. Su Zimo had never seen this person before in his memories. Logically speaking, he should not have any grudges with the perfected immortals of the other immortal domains. "Who is that?" Su Zimo asked. Yunju seemed to have sensed the black-robed man's hostility towards Su Zimo as well. "That's Jinsu. His strength is unfathomable and he's a popular candidate for the Supreme Perfected Immortal this time round. Do you remember I mentioned something to you about the Grand Pure Jade Manual and the 3 Pure Ones Jade Manual?" Su Zimo nodded. "You said that the Grand Pure Jade Manual once landed in the hands of a Heaven Immortal in the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain." At that point, Su Zimo seemed to have understood something as he murmured, "Could it be?" Yunshu said, "The Grand Pure Jade Manual fell into Qin's hands. However, that was tens of thousands of years ago. At that time, he was only a Heaven Immortal." Junyi said, "The reason why Qinsu was able to cultivate with such a terrifying speed to become a Paradise Void Perfected Immortal in tens of thousands of years was because of the Grand Pure Jade Manual. Of course, he's a prince to begin with and has a noble status with sufficient cultivation resources. Qinsu was even a prince." Su Zimo frowned slightly. It was no wonder why this person was so domineering. Even though he knew that Su Zimo was from Heaven and Earth Academy, he did not conceal the hostility in his heart. Su Zimo had no doubt that if he was just an itinerant cultivator, this Prince Qinsu would even dare to snatch his Pure Jade Manual in broad daylight in front of everyone. In the upper world, without the backing of a powerful faction, it was extremely difficult for one to survive, let alone cultivate. A long time after the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain arrived, the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain arrived. Unlike the other 8 immortal domains, although the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain also had Supreme Immortal Kings and Ordinary Immortal Kings leading the group this time round, there were clearly much less perfected immortals. The entire group added up to less than 10,000 people. Furthermore, it was clear that there was a lack of top-tier perfected immortal experts in the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain. Most of them were at the Convergence, or Celestial Being Realm. It's really way too tragic for the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain this time round. There's definitely no hope of them contending for the Perfected Immortal ranking. Notwithstanding the Perfected Immortal ranking, it's already extremely fortunate if any Perfected Immortal of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain can be ranked in the top 100 this time round. After all, in that battle back then, Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain was way too domineering and violent. He killed thousands of perfected immortals and the masters of the 5 immortal cities single-handedly, dealing a severe impact to the perfected immortal circle of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain. From the looks of it, they might not be able to recover without 100,000 years at the very least. Song Xian and the others brought it upon themselves by kidnapping a Dao child of Desolate Marshal. Who knew that Desolate Marshal would be so domineering that he would disregard everything and barge into the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain alone to start a massacre in Langfeng City? The moment the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain descended, the crowd discussed. The immortal kings of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain had ugly expressions. They surveyed their surroundings and harumphed coldly, emitting a powerful might to stifle the discussions around them. After all the 9 immortal domains of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain arrived, tens of thousands of monks from the 4 continents of the Pure Land of Bliss arrived at the same time. Did the Pure Land of Bliss produce any incredible monks this time round? Su Zimo asked. Yunshu said, "The most noteworthy person from the Pure Land of Bliss is an Arhat named Shi Wunyan. Most of the other Arhat experts are from the 4 continents. However, Shi Wunyan is from Mount Meru of the Pure Land of Bliss. It's said that he has already obtained the supreme true inheritance of Buddhism. If nothing goes wrong, Shi Wunyan should be this year's supreme Arhat." Following Yunju's direction, Su Zimo's gaze landed on a monk in the crowd. The monk was young and held one palm upright in front of him with a string of prayer beads hanging on it. He followed behind a heavenly king of the Buddhist monasteries with a lowered head. From afar, Shi Wunyan was no different from the other monks and was one of the types that were difficult to discover in a crowd. However, the moment Su Zimo's gaze landed on that person, Shi Wunyan suddenly raised his head. A bedazzling divine light burst forth from his eyes as he looked towards Su Zimo. What keen senses! Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. What was even stranger was that after the monks of the Pure Land of Bliss descended, countless gazes lingered on Shi Wunyan. Shi Wunyan was unmoved by all of them. When Su Zimo looked at him, he sensed something and turned back. Just as Su Zimo was puzzled, an unfamiliar voice sounded in Su Zimo's ears. It was warm, moderate, and extremely pleasant, like Sanskrit of the Buddhist monasteries, causing one to unconsciously feel reverence. Patron, you have an affinity with the Buddhist monasteries and the aura of Buddhism around you is extremely pure. I hope that I will have the chance to discuss Buddhism with you. Su Zimo looked at Shi Wunyan, who was among the monks in the distance. Shi Wunyan smiled benevolently and nodded in his direction. What a terrifying monk! Shi Wunyan's gaze was warm and his tone seemed extremely polite. However, Su Zimo felt his scalp tingle and a chill run down his spine. He finally realized why Shi Wunyan noticed him. That was because Shi Wunyan could sense the aura of Buddhism from him with just a single gaze and could tell that he was different. Although Shi Wunyan phrased it nicely, in reality, he wanted to probe Su Zimo's secrets. Although this person might not have guessed that he had cultivated the taboo mystic classic of the Buddhist monasteries, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, Su Zimo was clearly targeted by him. This monk who had the potential to become the supreme Arhat indeed possessed phenomenal abilities. Before the 9 Firmament meet began, Su Zimo was already targeted by many cultivators, including Heaven Immortals and Perfected Immortals. They were all hostile. Su Zimo had a calm expression. Given his current cultivation realm, he could sweep through all other experts of the Heaven Immortal realm. It did not matter if they were princes or princesses, everyone would be suppressed by him. If perfected immortal experts like Qin and Shi Wunyan were to come knocking, Su Zimo would naturally not be able to defeat them. However, it was not as though he had no way of dealing with them. The martial Tao prime body was still in seclusion in Avicii, and was at an important juncture of deducing the martial Tao. As long as the martial Tao prime body came out of seclusion, he could resolve all the dangers he was facing. The 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss factions were all present. Together, there were more than 100,000 cultivators gathered on the Builder Tree Mountain Range with a massive might. Most of those cultivators were experts at the perfected immortal realm. On the side of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, there were 13 Supreme Immortal Kings and more than 100 ordinary Immortal Kings. For the Pure Land of Bliss, 10 Supreme Heavenly Kings and dozens of ordinary Heavenly Kings arrived as well. This was an unprecedented sight. It was clear how much the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss valued this 9 Firmament meet. The reason why there were so many Immortal King experts holding down the fort was to ensure that the 9 Firmament meet could proceed smoothly without any sudden variables appearing. As the various factions gathered, the 9 Firmament meet officially began. Chapter 2595 Taking it out on the Prince. 2595 Taking it out on the Prince. An immortal king from the 9 Firmament Immortal domain arrived in midair. A heavenly king from the pure land of bliss appeared as well, and the two of them stood side by side. The Tao title of the immortal king from the 9 Firmament Immortal domain was Pu Xian, and the Tao title for the heavenly king of the pure land of bliss was Hui Wen. Although the two experts were only at the minor grotto heaven realm and were ordinary immortal kings, they had already hosted many 9 Firmament meets and were experienced. The two of them first exchanged pleasantries and introduced the rules and precautions of the 9 Firmament meet. Su Zimo was not interested and merely wanted the perfected immortal ranking and Arhat ranking to begin as soon as possible so that he could secretly absorb and refine the life force of the builder tree. After a while, Immortal King Pu Xian coughed gently and said, "The heaven immortals who can take part in the 9 Firmament meet are all paragons of the various immortal domains. Before the 2 ranking list competition begins, heaven immortals can also spar and interact with one another." This was also the custom of every 9 Firmament meet. The main event of the 9 Firmament meet was the fight for the perfected immortal ranking and Arhat ranking. Prior to this, the sparring between heaven immortals could only be considered as an appetizer to build excitement for the 2 ranking lists later on. There were no specific rules for the spar between heaven immortals. Every heaven immortal could stand out and challenge any opponents. Of course, the other party could also reject the challenge. If this was in private, it would naturally not matter if anyone rejected the challenges. However, this was the 9 Firmament meet where experts of both domains were gathered. If anyone rejected a challenge, it would have a huge impact on his reputation and even that of his sect. Furthermore, those who could take part in the 9 Firmament meet were all somebodies on the heaven rankings of the various immortal domains. None of them could afford to lose face like this. The moment Immortal King Pu Xian said that, more than 10 cultivators from the other 8 immortal domains stood out. 3 of them were even the rank 1s of the heaven ranking of the Verdant Firmament Immortal domain, Vantage Firmament Immortal domain, and Jade Firmament Immortal domain. "I heard that rank 1 of the heaven ranking in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, Su Zimo, is extremely powerful. Since this is a rare gathering, I'd like to spar with him," a grade 9 heaven immortal from the Green Firmament Immortal domain said in a deep voice. Rank 1 of the Green Firmament Immortal domain's heaven ranking was Lin Luo of the Battle Kingdom. The combat strength of this grade 9 heaven immortal was not weak either. He was rank 3 of the Green Firmament Immortal domain's heaven ranking this time round. "I want to challenge the Divine Firmament Immortal domain's Su Zimo as well." A grade 9 heaven immortal of the Elixir Firmament Immortal domain stood out and shouted. "What a coincidence!" Rank 1 of the Verdant Firmament Immortal domain's heaven ranking smiled. "The person I want to challenge is also the Divine Firmament's Su Zimo." It was not only the other 8 immortal domains. Even a few monks from the pure land of bliss stood out. Zen Master Hui Wen smiled gently and teased, "Young friends, are you all going to challenge Su Zimo of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain?" "Yes." "Me too." The few cultivators who had just stood out nodded one after another. Although the others did not say anything, they acknowledged it silently. Initially, Zen Master Hui Wen was merely asking casually. To think that cultivators of the various immortal domains and even monks of the pure land of bliss wanted to challenge the rank 1 of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain's heaven ranking. Instantly, Su Zimo became the focus of the 9 Firmament meet. Those cultivators did not know Su Zimo at all. However, the rumors of Su Zimo and the 4 great fairies at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet spread through the heavenly world, attracting the hostility of many cultivators. Fufu. Sword Immortal Zhuowuchen of the White Firmament Immortal domain smirked with a mocking expression. "The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. If a young man is too showy, he will naturally be taught a lesson by others," Lin Lei said in a low voice. "Sister, don't be fooled by Su Zimo's refined appearance. He's a big flirt. Look, there's even rumors of him and the 4 great fairies. Don't get too close to him." "Brother, you believe such rumors?" Lin Luo rolled her eyes at Lin Lei helplessly. Fairy Jialan of the verdant firmament immortal domain looked at Su Zimo curiously and said softly, "So he's Su Zimo. He looks ordinary, and there's nothing special about him. I wonder why the four great fairies would get involved with him given their stature." Another perfected immortal said, "No matter what, there are so many heaven immortal experts challenging Su Zimo, the rank ones of the heaven rankings and the other immortal domains included. It'll probably be difficult for that lad to tide through this." Unlike the excited discussions of the cultivators of the other immortal domains and the pure land of bliss, the divine firmament immortal domain was extremely quiet. Even Sword Immortal Yuhua, perfected immortal Wu Feng, Meng Yao and the others who had grudges with Su Zimo had calm expressions and did not make any sarcastic remarks. It was not that they did not want to, but they had witnessed Su Zimo's methods at the divine firmament immortal meet personally. They knew very well that the so-called paragons of the various immortal domains who had just stood out were no match for Su Zimo. Even if the group of them attacked together, they might not be able to threaten Su Zimo. Sword Immortal Yuhua and the others did not bear much hope and naturally reacted indifferently. Right then, on the side of the purple firmament immortal domain, a grade 9 heaven immortal stood up slowly and walked out of the crowd, exuding a unique might as he said slowly, "All of you retreat. Don't fight with me." It was the rank 1 of the purple firmament immortal domain's heaven ranking, Prince Ing Tian. Ing Tian wants to challenge Su Zimo as well? This is going to be interesting. I reckon that Ing Tian wants to suppress Su Zimo's limelight as well. Given his emperor bloodline, Su Zimo will definitely lose. Another commotion broke out in the crowd. None of the cultivators knew that the reason why Ing Tian wanted to challenge Su Zimo was because he had suffered a huge loss in Su Zimo's hands. The two of them had a feud of a severed arm. Furthermore, back in the secret ground of the pure magnificence heaven, he did not gain any advantage against Su Zimo. Even the pure jade manual was taken away by Su Zimo. That was an unacceptable humiliation for Ing Tian. As the son of an emperor, he had never encountered such a huge setback up till this point of his cultivation. When Sword Immortal Yuhua saw Prince Ing Tian appear, his expression changed and he was slightly interested. Ing Tian was different from the rank 1s of the heaven rankings in the other immortal domains. If there was anyone of the same cultivation realm who could suppress Su Zimo, Ing Tian should be the one with the highest chance. The cultivators who had just stood out to challenge Su Zimo retreated in fear when they saw Ing Tian appear. Even the rank 1s of the 3 immortal domains did not persist. Ing Tian was a prince after all with a noble status. Everyone had to give him some face, and there was no need to offend him just because of Su Zimo. Against the challenge of a group of heaven immortal experts, Su Zimo had a calm expression and was in deep thought. He did not take the so-called paragons before him seriously at all. He did not even care about Prince Ing Tian. His thoughts had always been on absorbing and refining the builder tree. I have to resolve this matter as soon as possible and let the competition for the 2 ranking lists begin as soon as possible. Su Zimo lamented internally. Only when the perfected immortal ranking and Arhat ranking began and attracted the attention of most cultivators could he seize the opportunity to secretly absorb and refine the life force of the builder tree. Initially, Su Zimo was pondering how troublesome it would be to deal with the challenges of so many cultivators. Now that Prince Ing Tian came knocking, it was exactly what he wanted. He could take it out on the prince and intimidate everyone else. Chapter 2596 Domineering Suppression 2596 Domineering Suppression. Su Zimo of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, do you dare to come out and accept the challenge? Say something. Could he be afraid? Is this the level of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain's heaven ranking? If he's so useless, you guys should replace him as soon as possible. A series of shouts sounded from the crowd and many cultivators hollered loudly, worried that Su Zimo would be afraid of fighting Ing Tian. On the peak of the Builder Tree mountain range, venues and platforms for cultivators to spar were set up. Ing Tian had already stood on them. Su Zimo smiled indifferently and rose. Stepping through the air, he arrived at the Sword Discourse Arena before long. On the side of the Grand Firmament Immortal domain, an imperceptible figure appeared behind the number 1 perfected Immortal, Qin Su. At that moment, he said in a low voice, "Young Master, if Ingtian kills Su Zimo, the pure Jade Manual will probably fall into the hands of Ingtian as well. It won't be easy to get it back. There's no hurry. Let the two of them exhaust themselves first." Qin Su replied indifferently, "Someone who possesses the pure Jade Manual and can defeat Yunting won't die so easily." On the Sword Discourse Arena, Su Zimo and Ingtian stood facing one another. Immortal King Pu Xian said, "If the two of you are ready, let's begin." On the side of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, Immortal King Qin Yang seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said loudly, "The point of sparring is not for you guys to fight to the death. It's best for the two of you to restrain yourselves." Ingtian said indifferently, "Senior Qin Yang, you're right. However, we're all top-tier heaven immortals and our strengths are similar. Once we fight, it'll be difficult for us to know our limits. Whether he can survive depends on his fate." Although Ingtian said it politely, in reality, he rejected the suggestion of Immortal King Qin Yang. "Idiot!" Immortal King Qin Yang cursed internally. "Do you think I was reminding you earlier on? I was reminding Su Zimo to spare your life." When Immortal King Qin Yang saw Ingtian's reaction, he smiled faintly and did not say anything more. On the Sword Discourse Arena, Ingtian glared at Su Zimo with a murderous aura and said coldly, "Su Zimo, I've waited for this day for too long." When he recalled the humiliation he experienced in the secret ground of the Pure Magnificence Heaven, the killing intent in Ingtian's heart had already accumulated to its peak. He had to retrieve everything he lost back then today. Su Zimo did not waste his breath on him. He only wanted to resolve this matter as soon as possible. Before Ingtian could finish his sentence, Su Zimo moved and transformed into a golden streak of light. Instantly, he crossed the entire Sword Discourse Arena and arrived before Ingtian. It was way too fast. Even the cultivators watching below the stage were shocked. Some heaven immortals who wanted to stand out and challenge Su Zimo earlier on had grim expressions and were secretly alarmed. The speed of that movement technique alone had already surpassed everyone's imagination. If they were in Ingtian's position, it would be difficult for them to react, and they might be suppressed by Su Zimo within a short period of time. "How dare you!" Ingtian's pupils constricted, and he reacted extremely quickly. With a shout, he chose to release his bloodline phenomenon without hesitation. Even a lion uses its full strength to fight a rabbit. Ingtian had witnessed Su Zimo's melee combat methods before and knew how powerful he was. He did not dare to be careless. However, the moment his bloodline phenomenon appeared, before it was condensed, Su Zimo suddenly opened his mouth and let out a deafening roar. It was like a dragon's roar and a phoenix's cry mixed with the explosion of thunder. It penetrated metal and cracked rocks in a deafening manner. Dragon Roar's secret skill. Ingtian released his sound domain's secret skill hurriedly as well, wanting to defend. However, Su Zimo had already released his innate divine power, the six-tusked divine strength, a step earlier in midair while he was charging over. The power of his body and essence spirit increased exponentially, and even the power of his sound domain's secret skill rose to its peak. Back when Su Zimo was a grade 8 heaven immortal, even Yunting could not defend against the impact of the Dragon Roar secret skill in melee combat. Now that Su Zimo had cultivated to become a grade 9 heaven immortal, the Dragon Roar secret skill caused a huge impact on Ingtian. Ingtian's eyes widened and he shuddered. Before his bloodline phenomenon was formed, it was dispersed by a single roar of the Dragon Roar secret skill. If not for the protection of the incomplete bloodline phenomenon earlier on, his body might have been severely injured. At that distance, many divine powers and secret skills could not be released in time. Only instantaneous secret skills could cause damage to the opponent. Ingtian released his visual technique and was prepared to counterattack. At the same time, a blinding beam of light burst forth from Su Zimo's right eye and destroyed Ingtian's visual technique instantly. The remaining beam of light entered Ingtian's eye socket. "Ah!" Ing Tian shrieked tragically, and one of his eyes went blind on the spot. If not for the protection of the defensive Dharmic treasure in his consciousness, the visual technique might have even injured his essence spirit. Su Zimo seized the opportunity to advance. He extended both hands and flicked out 10 sharp fingernails that were like sabers and swords, gripping Ing Tian's shoulders instantly. At the same time, he stretched his body and thrust his knees forward, charging forth like a divine steed. You! Ing Tian was enraged. Back in the secret ground of pure magnificence heaven, Su Zimo used this same move to injure him severely in melee combat. To think that Su Zimo would do the same today. Furthermore, he was even more ferocious and savage than before. Ing Tian lost the initiative against Su Zimo's sound domain's secret skill and visual technique, and could not defend against Su Zimo's attacks at all. Crack! His chest caved in deeply with the jarring sound of bones cracking. Shing! Fresh blood spewed in midair. Under countless gazes, Su Zimo tore off Ing Tian's arms with his tendons and bones. It was a shocking sight. It was not over yet. Before Ing Tian's figure was sent flying, Su Zimo reached out once more and slapped the top of Ing Tian's head. Show mercy! Stop! Instantly, 2 voices sounded. Most of the cultivators below the platform were in shock and had yet to recover. Immortal King Pu Xian and Zen Master Hui Wen, who were at the side, reacted right away. They shouted and released the might of Immortal Kings to suppress Su Zimo's figure while saving Ing Tian. Cough, cough! Although Ing Tian was saved, he looked dispirited and coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. The broken bones in his chest pierced his heart like a short spear. His blood chi deteriorated rapidly, and he no longer had the strength to fight. Wah! The cultivators were shocked and their faces were filled with disbelief. In less than 3 breaths, the battle was over. There was only a single person left on the Sword Discourse arena. It was rank 1 of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain's Heaven ranking, Su Zimo of Heaven and Earth Academy. Although Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Meng Yao and the others knew that Su Zimo's methods were powerful, they had not expected Ing Tian to lose so quickly and not even last 3 breaths. What happened earlier stunned many Heaven Immortals present. It was not only because of Su Zimo's series of powerful methods earlier on. More than that, it was because the killing intent that Su Zimo had just displayed was shuddering. Everyone could clearly see that if the 2 Immortal Kings had not saved him, Prince Ing Tian would have been a dead man. Su Zimo even dared to kill the son of an emperor. Chapter 2597 next. 2597 next. Who's next? Standing on the Sword Discourse arena, Su Zimo surveyed his surroundings with a burning gaze and a shuddering aura as he asked slowly. The Heaven Immortals below did not dare to meet his gaze and averted it. The rank 1s of the 3 immortal domains who stood out earlier on fell silent as well with wary expressions and did not say anything. Initially, Princess Lang Qianshan wanted to find an opportunity to fight Su Zimo once more. But now, she put that thought aside. Even Ing Tian nearly died. Who could guarantee that he could survive the battle? Even if she managed to survive in the same manner as Ing Tian, she would have lost all face, and the losses outweighed the gains. Su Zimo was very satisfied with the reactions of the crowd below. This was the effect he wanted when he attacked so ferociously earlier on. Otherwise, it would be too troublesome if so many cultivators came to challenge him one after another. Furthermore, before he attacked, he had already expected that someone would save Ing Tian. Ing Tian's identity was special after all. Immortal King Pu Xian and Zen Master Hui Wen were hosting the 9 Firmament meet, and there was no way they would let the prince die in front of them. Qin Se of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain glanced sideways. Shadow, go! Understood! An imperceptible figure behind Qin Se hesitated for a moment before agreeing to it. He had no name. Everything he had was given to him by Qin Se. Even his life did not belong to him, and he was prepared to sacrifice himself for Qin Se at any moment. He was merely Qin Se's shadow. When Su Zimo saw that no one was going to fight, He was about to leave when a figure entered the sword discourse arena. Many cultivators were invigorated. Su Zimo frowned slightly. There's still someone who dares to come? The person's face was covered and his body swayed slightly, as though he was one with the void around the sword discourse arena. His entire body seemed hazy and blurry. After Shadow went on stage, he attacked Su Zimo without saying anything. Suddenly, he vanished. When he reappeared, he was already beside Su Zimo and stabbed towards the back of the latter's head. Shing! The sword she tore through the void and let out a sharp sound. Su Zimo's expression was calm and unmoved. In fact, he did not even attempt to dodge. Before the sword chi even landed on Su Zimo, it dissipated rapidly and vanished. Shadow's attack earlier on was merely a feint. Even that seemingly corporeal sword chi was merely an illusion. Shing! Shadow appeared once more. This time round, he arrived beside Su Zimo and slashed through the air with a murderous intent. Su Zimo did not even look at him and was still motionless. The figure dissipated once more and vanished. Shadow cultivated many Dharmic Taos, including the Tao of concealment, assassination, and illusion. The current scene was the result of those Dharmic Taos combined together. Although Su Zimo had never dabbled in those Dharmic Taos before, he relied on his spirit perception and was not disturbed at all. Shadow's 2 attacks earlier on did not make him feel threatened. Even after a few probing attempts, Shadow did not truly attack. Swoosh! Shadow appeared once more. Die! This time round, Shadow released an essence spirit secret skill at Su Zimo while shifting between illusion and reality. What was initially a feint turned into a true assassination attempt instantly. Su Zimo's expression turned cold. Shadow was not here to spar at all. In a Dharmic art fight between cultivators, he released his essence spirit secret skill right away. It was clear he was out to kill. If he was not wrong, this person was ordered by Chinsu to kill him and snatch the pure jade manual. Humph! Su Zimo was a decisive person to begin with. Once he realized that, there was no way he would hold back. He ignored Shadow's essence spirit secret skill and conjured a Dharmic seal, smashing it towards the latter's head. Ham! At the same time, Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit. Instantly, the Dharmic seal in his hands seemed to have transformed into a thick, majestic and unattainable mountain peak that crushed down with a shocking might. Oh! In the direction of the Pure Land of Bliss, the eyes of some heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries lit up when they saw the mountain peak. The glint in Shirwunyan's eyes intensified as he murmured, "To think that it's the secret skill of the Buddhist monasteries, the great Mount Meru seal. This lad indeed has the inheritance of the Buddhist monasteries." The great Mount Meru seal. It was a one-sided defeat. The great Mount Meru seal was heavy, steady and simple. It was the most effective against the illusory Dharmic Tao techniques Shadow utilized. Back at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet, even Yun Ting could not dispel that Dharmic seal right away and was disadvantaged. It was even worse for Shadow. Creak! Shadow's sword was shattered by the great Mount Meru seal. Poof! Although more than half of the power was dissipated, the great Mount Meru seal still caused Shadow to spit out blood and he was sent flying. Su Zimo's hand seals changed once more. Before Shadow's figure landed, a massive white tiger appeared to the west of him. It roared and opened its bloody mouth, biting Shadow. That bite and roar of the white tiger had already killed Shadow. It was one of Su Zimo's strongest killing techniques, White Tiger Corpse Collection. Chinsu's Shadow died on the spot and his essence spirit was destroyed. Amitba. Zen Master Huiwen chanted a Buddhist proclamation softly with a look of pity. This time round, neither Immortal King Pu Xian nor he stood in to save Shadow. After all, Shadow was just a servant under Chinsu's lead. His status was worlds apart from the prince, and was not worthy of the two of them making a move. Beneath the sword discourse arena, the crowd was in an uproar. Su Zimo's counterattack was so ferocious that Chinsu's Shadow was killed on the spot after 2 Dharmic arts. At the same time, many cultivators felt relieved. Thankfully, they did not head to the Sword Discourse Arena rashly earlier on. Otherwise, the corpse up there right now might have been one of them. Qin Si's expression darkened and his eyes shone with a cold glint. Interesting. Suddenly, Qin Si smiled and clapped his hands, saying meaningfully, Su Zimo, you're very good. The road ahead is long, I'm sure we'll get to interact again. Everyone could hear the threat in Qin Si's words. Qin Si was a prince and had the potential of contending for the Supreme Perfected Immortal title. He possessed the inheritance of the Grand Pure Jade Manual, and was definitely bent on getting his hands on the Jade Pure Jade Manual. Su Zimo ignored Qin Si's threat and merely pointed at Shadow's corpse, saying coldly, Take him away. Next. Instantly, the discussions in the surrounding quietened down. Su Zimo defeated 2 Grade 9 Heaven Immortals in succession, and even Prince Tian nearly died. Who would dare to head up and die? Earlier on, a group of Heaven Immortals were eager to challenge Su Zimo. But now, when Su Zimo stood on the Sword Discourse Arena and challenged the Heaven Immortal experts of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss, none of them dared to accept the challenge. Foo-foo. Su Zimo chuckled and leaped down from the Sword Discourse Arena, returning to the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. The Grand Elder of the Academy was all smiles and looked satisfied. In the 2 battles earlier on, not only did Su Zimo make a supreme reputation for himself and shock the crowd, the reputation of Heaven and Earth Academy benefited indirectly as well. After this, there were some Heaven Immortals who went on to the arena to spar. However, everything seemed much blander compared to Su Zimo's battles earlier on. The spar between the Heaven Immortals did not cause much of a stir and ended quickly. Next was the main event of the 9 Firmament meet, the fight for the Perfected Immortal ranking and Arhat ranking. Chapter 2598 Secretly Cultivating. 2598 Secretly Cultivating. The terrain of the Builder Tree mountain range was semicircular. Using the mountain range as the main focus, in the valley below, 2 gigantic ceiling immortal formations were set up and they were known as the Builder Tree battlefields. The Perfected Immortals of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and the Arhats of the Pure Land of Bliss competed in their respective regions. They were independent and did not interfere with one another. The elimination round in the Builder Tree battlefield was open to every Perfected Immortal. Participating Perfected Immortals would obtain a badge called the Builder Tree Badge. Once injected with true essence, the Builder Tree Badge would activate a defensive barrier that was connected to the immortal formation. No matter what danger they encountered, they would survive. An expert at the Perfected Immortal realm was an irreplaceable support for any sect or faction. There was no way they would allow Perfected Immortals to kill one another and fight with their lives for the sake of the Perfected Immortal ranking. That would be a self-destructive action for both the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss. That was the reason for the existence of the Builder Tree Badge. On the other hand, the Builder Tree Badge was also closely related to the final ranking. In the 2 Builder Tree battlefields, the top 100 Perfected Immortals who obtained the most Builder Tree Badges would enter the final battle. There have been many competition formats for the 9 Firmament meet. However, after many attempts, this was the most fair and reasonable one. Su Zimo listened for a while. This model was similar to when he took part in the Immortal Sex selection back then. The 2 Builder Tree battlefields were long prepared. On the side of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, a group of Perfected Immortal experts stood up one after another. Renowned experts such as Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Zither Immortal Meng Yao, Perfected Immortal Wu Feng and Chun Feng Jian would naturally not miss this opportunity. Even Yang Roxu was prepared to undergo a baptism of killing in the Builder Tree battlefield. The improvement of watching from the sidelines was never as great as experiencing it personally. Sister, aren't you taking part? When Yunju saw that Mo Qing did not stand up the entire time, she could not help but ask. Mo Qing hesitated. In the depths of her heart, she was not willing to participate in such a fight. Yunju smiled gently and persuaded. Sister, you don't have to be so resistant. It's just a participation. It'll be best if you can be ranked in the top 100. If you can't, it's fine. There's nothing to lose. There were only 10 spots on the Perfected Immortal ranking. However, if one could be ranked in the top 100 of the Builder Tree battlefield, they could also obtain a chance to cultivate beneath the Builder Tree. In other words, at the 9 Firmament meet, only 200 Perfected Immortals were qualified to cultivate beneath the Builder Tree. This was an irresistible temptation for many Perfected Immortals. Even if one only managed to cultivate beneath the Builder Tree for a month, it would be equivalent to 10,000 years of effort. Furthermore, the Builder Tree only slept once every 100,000 years. This was a rare opportunity that could not be missed. All right. Mo Qing nodded. Before long, thousands of Perfected Immortals from the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, including the 4 great fairies, entered the fray. Apart from some Perfected Immortals whose cultivation realms were too low and thought that they had no hope, most of them intended to fight in the Builder Tree battlefield. On the side of the 9 Firmament Immortal domain, tens of thousands of Perfected Immortals entered the fray. The situation on the side of the Pure Land of Bliss was not much different. The Perfected Immortals and Arhats wielded their Builder Tree badges and were randomly teleported to various parts of the Builder Tree battlefields. A massive battle between Perfected Immortals had officially begun. Su Zimo took a rough look. Chess Immortal Junyu of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, Qin Se of the Grand Firmament Immortal domain, Lin Lei of the Green Firmament Immortal domain, Fairy Jiao Lan of the Verdant Firmament Immortal domain, Zhuo Wuchen and Yun Mubai of the White Firmament Immortal domain. All of these hot candidates on the Perfected Immortal ranking were extremely domineering. The moment the battle royal began, they did not choose to form a team with others. Instead, they pushed forth alone and no one could stop them. Among the 4 great fairies, apart from Chess Immortal Junyu, Zither Immortal Meng Yao and Book Immortal Yun Zhu relied on their own methods as well to snatch the Builder Tree badges continuously and smoothly. Mo Qing did not like to fight, nor did she take the initiative to look for opponents. Under normal circumstances, it would be difficult for her to obtain enough Builder Tree badges if she participated in this battle royale. However, there were always Perfected Immortals who thought that Painting Immortal Mo Qing was the weakest among the 4 great fairies and took the initiative to attack her. News of Mo Qing tearing the painting book at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet had long spread through the 9 Firmament Immortal domain. Many Perfected Immortals instinctively felt that Mo Qing's combat strength had decreased after losing the painting book and was not much of a threat. However, none of them expected that Mo Qing would advance in her cultivation realm with the help of the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend diagram and gain new insights into the Tao of painting. Even without the painting book, Mo Qing's combat strength was top tier among Perfected Immortals. It was just that she rarely fought against others, creating the misconception that the Painting Immortal was weak. With the Perfected Immortals that came knocking on her door, the number of Builder Tree badges on Mo Qing's body increased continuously. Yang Ruoxu was only a Convergence Perfected Immortal after all. It did not take long for him to be defeated by a Hollow Nether Perfected Immortal within, and was unfortunately eliminated. Be it the 9 Firmament Immortal domain, or the Pure Land of Bliss, almost all the cultivators' attention was focused on the 2 Builder Tree battlefields below. As the battle progressed, everyone discussed and commented. Su Zimo merely looked at it for a while before calming down. He secretly extended the connection of his green lotus true body underground. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness followed the thick roots and gradually arrived at the true form of the Builder Tree. At that moment, it was as though he had transformed into a creation green lotus and took root here. His roots intertwined with the roots of the Builder Tree and began to absorb the life force of the latter. Su Zimo did not dare to absorb it too quickly. Firstly, he was worried that he would alarm the Builder Tree. Secondly, he was afraid of attracting attention. Apart from a group of Perfected Immortal experts, there were also many Immortal Kings holding down the fort at the 9 Firmament meet after all. All of these Immortal Kings had sharp senses. If anything happened, there was a high chance that some of them would be suspicious. As time passed by, the combat on the Builder Tree battlefield below intensified. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd from time to time. Su Zimo did not care, nor was he interested. He continued to absorb and refine the Builder Tree in secret to strengthen the Green Lotus true body. In just a day, he could clearly sense that the Green Lotus true body had received an extremely obvious improvement. If he were to cultivate at this speed, the Green Lotus true body might be able to grow to the peak of grade 11 within a few days. As the Green Lotus true body grew, his cultivation realm would increase as well, and he would reach the peak of a grade 9 heaven immortal. Su Zimo cultivated in silence and absorbed and refined the life force energy of the Builder Tree. Although he had been suppressing it the entire time, he could not help but emit a unique aura that belonged to the Flora race. This aura was mixed with the Builder Tree and Creation Green Lotus. Although perfected immortals might not be able to sense it, it could not be hidden from some Immortal King experts. The expression of Immortal King Qin Yang changed, as though he sensed something. At the same time, on the side of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain, Immortal Queen Ling Long sensed something unusual about Su Zimo. She hurriedly conjured a secret skill through the endless void in secret, creating a concealment that could hide the heavenly secrets around Su Zimo. Immortal King Qin Yang glanced sideways and surveyed Su Zimo's side. When he did not find anything, he frowned and retracted his gaze. Chapter 2599 2599 Thoughts of the Prime Body. 2599 Thoughts of the Prime Body. 5 days later. The elimination round of the 2 Builder Tree battlefields was almost over. On the side of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, Chess Immortal Junyu was far in the lead and had the second most number of Builder Tree badges. Next was Sword Immortal Yuhua. Yun Zhu, Mo Qing and Meng Yao were all in the top 100. There were only 8 perfected immortals from the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain in the top 100. Half of them were the 4 great fairies alone. Fairy Jiaolan, Zhuo Wuchen and the other popular candidates mentioned previously were among the top 100 as well. Prince Qin Se of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain was the one with the most number of Builder Tree badges. The competition for the perfected immortal ranking this time round is way too intense. By the looks of it, there are at least 3 people who have a chance of obtaining the title of Supreme Perfected Immortal. Divine Firmament Immortal Domains Chess Immortal Junyu, Grand Firmament Immortal Domains Qin Se and Green Firmament Immortal Domains Lin Lei. In my opinion, Zhuo Wuchen of the White Firmament Immortal Domain has a chance as well and is not much weaker than the 3 of them. These top-tier experts must have definitely held back with their trump cards in the elimination round. It's hard to say who will win the final competition. For the past few days, many cultivators on the peak of the Builder Tree discussed. Even some immortal kings conversed with one another and commented on the perfected immortals who were participating in the battle below. Compared to the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, there was evidently no ambiguity about the elimination round at the side of the Pure Land of Bliss. The rank 1 of the elimination round was Shi Wunyan. He was far ahead of others in the number of Builder Tree badges obtained. For the past 5 days, Su Zimo did not watch the battle much. He absorbed and refined the life force energy of the Builder Tree and cultivated continuously. The Green Lotus true body was growing rapidly and his cultivation realm advanced by leaps and bounds. He was close to the peak of a grade 9 heaven immortal. Of course, even if he cultivated to the peak of a grade 9 heaven immortal here and touched the barrier of the perfected 1 realm, Su Zimo would not be able to break through here. The advancement of the Green Lotus true body to the perfected 1 realm was no small matter. This was not merely an increase in his cultivation realm with the condensation of a Tao fruit to become a perfected immortal. At the same time, it meant that the Green Lotus true body would grow to grade 12. The creation Green Lotus would ripen completely and would be at its peak. At that time, nobody knew what changes would happen. Right now, there were many immortal kings surrounding him. If Su Zimo broke through here, the bloodline of the creation Green Lotus would definitely be exposed. It would be equivalent to committing suicide. There were so many immortal king experts from various sects and factions that even the sect master of the academy might not be able to protect him. Furthermore, the Dharmic Tao cultivated by the Green Lotus true body was complex. He had cultivated the taboo mystic classics of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Taoists. There was also a powerful cultivation technique from the demon Tao, such as the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Under such circumstances, it would become extremely difficult and complicated to condense a Tao fruit and break through. Without a good opportunity, it would be difficult to break through. After the elimination round was over, the cultivators returned to their sects and rested for the night. The final ranking battle would be held the next day to determine the 10 spots on the perfected Immortal and Arhat rankings. Avicii. The martial Tao prime body opened his eyes and the purple Tao fire in them gradually retracted. He snapped out of his endless deduction of the Dharmic Tao and exhaled gently. He had benefited immensely from his deduction this time round. He had already comprehended the crux of the martial Tao Dharmic formulation for the next realm. However, there were still some details that he could not figure out yet. Furthermore, the fog ahead had already dissipated gradually, and the martial Tao prime body could vaguely see the future. The Dharmic Tao of the human race was passed down through the Immortal, Fiend, and Buddhist Taos. Demons had the demon Tao. There were 10,000 Dharmic Taos in the 10,000 races. However, at the end of the day, all Dharmic Taos would converge into one and lead to the same goal. It might be the same for the martial Tao. The end of the Tao was always similar. No matter what Dharmic Tao one cultivated, they would eventually head to the same shore. He could not confirm the next realm of the martial Tao for the time being. However, in this seclusion, a sudden thought flashed through the mind of the martial Tao prime body. It was an extremely bold thought that might even result in a slim chance of survival. However, once he succeeded, with that inspiration, he might be able to create a Tao unique to him that no one could surpass or replicate. To a certain extent, the Dharmic Tao of the martial Tao was no different from the Immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend Taos and did not exceed the restraints of this world. However, his existence was a variable to begin with, and he was the founder of the martial Tao. His body smelted thousands of divine powers and secret skills and nurtured all sutras. That was the reason why the martial Tao could release such terrifying combat strength in his hands. His disciples, Baiming Shui and Carefree, were not the only ones who could cultivate the martial Tao. All living beings in the world could and ascend to become immortals. The martial Tao did not belong to him alone. However, if he could verify this thought of his and synthesize the fact that he was a variable together with the foundation of the martial Tao, he might be able to break through some sort of restriction of the laws and step into an unknown, unfathomable, and untouchable world. From the beginning, the martial Tao prime body had been trying to surpass everything. He did not only want to surpass others, but also himself. During this period of seclusion cultivation, the martial Tao prime body cultivated his Tao body while deducing the Dharmic Tao. The true martial Tao body was about to reach the perfected realm. On the 6th day of the 9 Firmament meet, the final ranking battle of the perfected Immortal ranking and Arhat ranking officially began. The cultivators on the 2 ranking lists were divided into the 2 battlefields and fought in pairs. After each round, the cultivators would be given enough time to rest. Therefore, the ranking battle had to last for 2 days. The first match of the perfected Immortal ranking was Qin Su against the grade 9 perfected Immortal of the Purple Firmament Immortal Domain. Although this grade 9 perfected Immortal was not weak, he had no chance against Prince Qin Su. He admitted defeat in less than 10 moves. The second match was Jun Yu against a grade 9 perfected Immortal of the Verdant Firmament Immortal Domain. Jun Yu won with ease as well. The third match was between Lin Lei and Mo Qing. Mo Qing did not take part in the battle and admitted defeat. Many cultivators thought that painting Immortal Mo Qing made this choice because she knew that she had no chance of winning. Only Su Zimo, Yun Zhu, and the others knew that Mo Qing was merely unwilling to fight. For her, it was enough if she could enter the top 100 and obtain a chance to cultivate beneath the Builder Tree. Su Zimo caught a few matches casually before calming down to cultivate in secret. The 6th day passed. The top 50 spots were already decided. Among them, on the side of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, apart from painting Immortal Mo Qing who withdrew at the start, the other 3 of the 4 great fairies were ranked in the top 50. Sword Immortal Yu Hua was also far in the lead. Everyone knew that the ranking battle on the 7th day would be even more intense. The final day was the clash between the top perfected immortal experts. After resting for the night, the ranking battle began early the next morning. The remaining 50 perfected immortals on the side of the 9 Firmament immortal domain fought once more. The battle was unprecedentedly intense, and the cultivators watching felt their hearts skip a beat as their blood boiled. In between, 2 perfected immortals even exhausted their final trump cards and fought to a draw. On the peak of the Builder Tree, among the vast number of cultivators, there was probably only a single person who did not take the ranking battle of the perfected immortal ranking and Arhat ranking to heart. Instead, he made use of this opportunity to secretly cultivate and grow rapidly. Chapter 2600 Astral Imprisonment. 2600 Astral Imprisonment. 7th day of the 9 Firmament meet. Afternoon, the ranking battle for the perfected immortal ranking and Arhat ranking had already entered the final phase. On the side of the pure land of bliss, Shurwunyan won everything and no one could stop him. On the side of the 9 Firmament immortal domain, Chess Immortal Junyu, Prince Qin Se, Lin Lei and Zhuo Wuchen were far in the lead with complete victories. Junyu's chess Dao, Qin Se's secret skills of the Emperor, Lin Lei's halberd and Zhuo Wuchen's sword Dao left deep impressions on the cultivators present. If nothing went wrong, the supreme perfected immortal of this generation would be born among them. The next battle was between Zither immortal Meng Yao and Lin Lei. Meng Yao's Dao was through her music. It would be fine if she was up against ordinary cultivators. However, against a top-tier perfected immortal like Lin Lei, it was difficult for her Dharmic Dao to unleash its power head-on. Meng Yao's zither sound could not affect Lin Lei's Dao heart at all. Lin Lei wielded his halberd with a torrential aura and defeated zither immortal Meng Yao. Thereafter, Book immortal Yun Zhu went against Prince Qin Se. Unsurprisingly, Yun Zhu was defeated in this battle. Even so, Yun Zhu's performance attracted praise. Right from the beginning, Yun Zhu seemed to be holding back. Although she was defeated in the end, she did not seem wretched at all and retreated with grace. Many immortal kings secretly speculated that the combat strength of Book immortal Yun Zhu was most likely sufficient for her to be ranked on the perfected immortal ranking. It was merely unfortunate that she had a bad ranking for the elimination round, causing her to have to face Prince Qin Se prematurely and be knocked out. Evening. On the side of the pure land of bliss, the ranking battle for the Arhat ranking was the first to end. The Arhat ranking of this generation was out. As everyone had expected, the top of the Arhat ranking with the title of Supreme was Shurwunyan from the pure land of bliss's Mount Meru. Shurwunyan won everything along the way, and furthermore, they were landslides. There was no doubt towards his conferment as Supreme. Rank 1 of the Arhat ranking, Shurwunyan. Rank 2, Wu Gaoni. Rank 3, Wu. Rank 4, Su Ba. Rank 5, Tian Mu. Rank 6, Ding Li. Rank 7, Budong. Rank 8, Luo Du. Rank 9, Pemo. Rank 10, Durin. As for the 9 Firmament immortal domain, the ranking battle was already coming to an end. The first 2 battles were Qin Se against Zhuo Wuchen and Junyu against Lin Lei. Qin Se and Junyu won respectively. This meant that it would either be Qin Se or Junyu who would be the supreme perfected immortal. The current battle was between Lin Lei and Zhuo Wuchen to fight for the 3rd spot on the perfected immortal ranking. After an intense fight, Lin Lei won after a tragic battle. Zhuo Wuchen was not fated to be in the top 3 of the perfected immortal ranking and was defeated. Lin Lei dragged his injured body back to the green Firmament immortal domain. Lin Luo went up to him immediately and consoled him. "Brother, congratulations. Mother was praising you earlier on. It's already not bad for you to be 3rd. Lin Lei shook his head gently and smiled bitterly. He was naturally dissatisfied with being rank 3 on the perfected immortal ranking. However, there was Chess Immortal Junyu and Prince Qin Se in this generation. Indeed, he could not defeat them. Lin Lei rubbed Lin Luo's head gently and said earnestly, "Sister, look at Suzimo. Don't think that he's very strong just because there's no one who can match him in the heaven immortal realm. At the perfected immortal realm, there are many people who are stronger than him. One can only be called a true paragon after advancing to the perfected one realm. His current achievements are nothing. Lin Luo pouted. Brother, how do you know that he will fail after entering the perfected one realm? In my opinion, his potential is much greater than yours. Humph. Lin Lei was a little disdainful. He's only comparable to me if he's even qualified to partake in the competition for the perfected immortal ranking and can obtain rank 3. Layer, you're still arrogant. Immortal Queen Ling Long shook her head gently. Up till this point of your cultivation, you thought that you were invincible among your peers. However, you suffered an unexpectedly huge loss in Langfeng City. Even after you have just suffered another setback at the perfected immortal ranking, you're not intending to reflect upon yourself? Lin Lei naturally did not dare to refute Immortal Queen Ling Long's reprimand, and merely lowered his head in silence. The next battle was the true center of attraction. Prince Qin Su was up against Chess Immortal Jun Yu. Even the monks of the Pure Land of Bliss gathered to watch the battle. Zimo, who do you think will win? Yun Zhu glanced sideways and asked. Su Zimo was still cultivating and did not seem to have heard or noticed anything. Zimo? Yun Zhu was worried when she saw Su Zimo in a strange state. Although his eyes were on the battlefield, he seemed to be in a trance with his mind elsewhere. She could not help but touch him gently as she called out once more. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo woke up from his cultivation state. In the 7 days of the 9 firmament meet, he cultivated with the help of the builder tree, and the green lotus true body grew at a terrifying speed. It had already reached the peak of a grade 9 heaven immortal. However, he did not sense the barrier of the perfected one realm. If he wanted to break through, he would have to consolidate his comprehension and find a suitable opportunity. Now that Yun Zhu had awakened him, he had no intention of continuing cultivating for the time being. He was prepared to watch the final battle of the perfected immortal ranking. Are you all right? Yun Zhu asked. Su Zimo smiled and nodded. Recalling Yun Zhu's question earlier on, he said in a low voice. In my opinion, Jun Yu has a higher chance. If it was 1,000 years ago, Jun Yu and Qin Su might have been on par. But now that Jun Yu has obtained the inheritance of Immortal Queen Ling Long, it was an extremely obvious increase to her combat strength. As dusk descended, a huge battle broke out. The moment the two perfected immortal experts attacked, they did not test the waters and released their strongest trump cards. In a fight of this level, one could lose if they were careless. Jun Yu held the chessboard in her hands and carried the starry skies on her back. The entire battlefield seemed to have turned into a chessboard as she stood outside, manipulating the fates of each chess piece. Even Qin Su was merely a chess piece in her hands. Qin Su's methods were extremely terrifying as well. The Emperor's bloodline was incomparably domineering as he forcefully released his bloodline phenomenon. It was as though an iron-blooded army was gathered behind him and a single order shattered the chess game. The combat intensity of both parties increased continuously, and they even released Essence Spirit secret skills. Before long, it reached its climax and victory could be decided at any moment. Suddenly, Qin Su touched his glabella with his finger and took out a scarlet ancient book, creating another self right in front of everyone. The two of them looked identical even in terms of cultivation realm. It was the Grand Pure Jade Manual from one of the taboo mystic classics, the Three Pure Ones Jade Manual. The crowd stirred when they saw that. Qin Su alone was already enough to fight Chess Immortal Jun Yu to a draw. How would Jun Yu defend against the combined forces of two Qin CS? Back in the battle between Su Zimo and Yun Ting, it was after Su Zimo released his primeval body that Yun Ting was completely defeated. And now, Qin Su used the Grand Pure Jade Manual to condense a morality body. Although the physique of the morality body was ordinary, its spirit consciousness was incomparably strong, and could even release Essence Spirit secret skills. On the battlefield, Jun Yu's expression was calm. She was not flustered when she saw Qin Su release his morality body. Since that's the case, I'll let you witness my capabilities. Junyu conjured hand seals repeatedly with both hands, and her spirit consciousness was expended immensely. An incomparably tremendous might descended as though the world was locked and restricted. Pointing at Qin-su, Junyu said softly, "Astral imprisonment! Peerless divine power, astral imprisonment!" Chapter 2601 2601 Perfect End. 2601 Perfect End. When they saw that, the cultivators were shocked. A glint flashed through the eyes of the immortal kings as well. How difficult was it to comprehend peerless divine powers? Opportunities, talent, and comprehension were all factors that could not be lacking. In the current heavenly world, Junyu was the only perfected immortal who had comprehended a peerless divine power. Even among the immortal king experts present, none of them could comprehend a peerless divine power back then. It was no exaggeration to say that the rarity of peerless divine powers was comparable to the taboo mystic classics. Furthermore, ever since the perfected immortal and Arhat rankings were established, perfected immortals who could comprehend peerless divine powers were invincible among their peers. Without exception, all of them were conferred the title of Supreme Perfected Immortal. The moment Junyu released her peerless divine power, astral imprisonment, there was no doubt about the outcome of this battle. In terms of strength, peerless divine powers could suppress perfected immortals almost completely. Immortal King Long Knight of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain turned to look at Immortal King Qin Yang and said, "To think that the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain would give birth to such a monster incarnate. Furthermore, she's a woman. How shocking. It's indeed rare." Immortal King Qin Yang nodded slightly. The last woman that shocked many immortals was Immortal Queen Ling Long of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain. Immortal Queen Ling Long came from the lower worlds and rose all the way, even becoming an immortal queen in the end. This matter caused a huge stir in the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain. Immortal King Long Knight's gaze shifted and swept past Immortal Queen Ling Long in a seemingly unintentional manner. In order to comprehend astral imprisonment, one has to possess extremely high attainments in the Dharmic Taoist of space and time. From the spatial Dharmic Tao of this woman, she seems to be guided by another powerful master. Immortal King Long Knight had a major grotto heaven and was considered a supreme immortal king whose cultivation realm was even above Immortal Queen Ling Long naturally. He could tell that Junyu carried some Dharmic Tao traces of Immortal Queen Ling Long. In reality, back at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet, Junyu had not comprehended this peerless divine power. It was all thanks to the 3 days she spent playing chess with Su Zimo in the room. On the 3rd day, she witnessed the entire process of Su Zimo resolving the 8th Ling Long Zugzwang, and gained some inspiration and insights. She fused it together with her personal Dharmic Tao to comprehend that peerless divine power. Immortal King Long Knight said, "In my opinion, there's no need for this fight to continue. Chess Immortal Junyu should be the victor." "Exactly." Immortal King Qin Yang nodded as well. Qin-su was a prince after all and had a noble status with the backing of an emperor. There was no need for him to lose his life for the title of Supreme Perfected Immortal. On the battlefield, after Qin-su released his morality body, he realized that he and his morality body could not move at all. Time was not the only thing imprisoned, space as well. Unless they had the strength of another peerless divine power, there was no way perfected immortals could break free from astral imprisonment. The moment the peerless divine power descended, the battlefield suddenly turned silent. Even the air froze and all sound vanished without a trace. In front of Junyu, Qin-su was like fish on a chopping board that could be slaughtered at will. With an indifferent expression, Junyu flicked her finger gently. A black chess piece tore through the void and flew slowly towards Qin-su's glabella. Qin-su watched helplessly in shock and anger as the black chess piece flew towards him. This was the power of a peerless divine power. On the other side, a hint of fear flashed through Shi Wenyan's eyes when he saw that. He was already the most outstanding monk in the Buddhist monasteries in the past 100,000 years. Even so, he had not comprehended a peerless divine power. To be precise, the supreme divine power he controlled had already touched the threshold of peerless divine power but had yet to be cultivated successfully. Right then, two incomparably domineering powers surged in and broke through the restricted space on the battlefield. Under the instigation of Immortal King Long Night and Immortal King Qin Yang, Immortal King Pu Xian and Zen Master Hui Wen attacked at the same time to save Qin Su and forcefully end the battle. Qin Su regained his freedom and looked at the black chess piece that was right in front of him. Instinctively, he retreated a few steps and looked at Jun Yu opposite him, cursing internally. Crazy woman! He had a life-saving item given to him by his father, and Jun Yu would definitely not be able to kill him. However, the fear of being rendered completely immobile and incapable of controlling anything still gave him a sense of trepidation. Immortal King Pu Xian smiled gently and declared, "Both of you are rare paragons of the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain. Since the outcome has been decided, there's no need for you to fight to the death." Qin Su's expression was terrible. He harumphed coldly and flicked his sleeves before leaving. The competition for the Perfected Immortal ranking came to an official end here. Rank 1 of the Perfected Immortal ranking, Chess Immortal Jun Yu of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Rank 2, Qin Su of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain. Rank 3, Lin Lei of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain. Rank 4, Zhuo Wuqian of the White Firmament Immortal Domain. Rank 5, Fairy Jiao Lan of the Verdant Firmament Immortal Domain. Rank 6, Yun Mubai of the White Firmament Immortal Domain. Rank 7, Ding Yuan of the Purple Firmament Immortal Domain. Rank 8, Shirgu of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain. Rank 9, Yu Hua of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Rank 10, Fairy Ling Huang of the Elixir Firmament Immortal Domain. The Perfected Immortal ranking this time round was rather special. Not only did 3 fairies occupy 3 of the 10 spots, the Supreme Perfected Immortal was a fairy as well. Ever since the Perfected Immortal ranking was established, this was the first time a fairy had been conferred the title of Supreme. Furthermore, there was no Perfected Immortal from the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain on the Perfected Immortal ranking. In the battle in Langfeng City, the 5 city lords of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain who had a chance of contending for the Perfected Immortal ranking were all killed by Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain, causing them to suffer immense losses. The 2 gigantic ranking lists of the Perfected Immortal and Arhat rankings were hung on the Builder tree. There were a total of 20 Perfected Immortals, and every single name shone with a bedazzling glow. Those 20 were the strongest and most outstanding paragons and monster incarnates of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss for the past 100,000 years. In the past 100,000 years, the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss had given birth to countless Perfected Immortals. However, only those 20 were qualified to leave their names on the Perfected Immortal and Arhat rankings. All the cultivators looked at the names on the Perfected Immortal ranking with reverence and envy. It was definitely a supreme honor in their lives to be able to leave their names on it. Before long, the names of the 20 Perfected Immortals would spread through the 2 domains and the entire heavenly world, entering the books of history. The Immortal King experts of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss heaved a sigh of relief as well. There were no accidents for the past 7 days. The Fiend Domain was rather quiet. Now that the Perfected Immortal and Arhat rankings were complete, it was time for the top 100 Perfected Immortals of the 2 domains to head to the Builder tree to cultivate. The other Perfected Immortals could cultivate on the peak of the Builder tree as well. The heaven and earth essence chi here was much richer than the spirit meridians of other immortal mountains. At this point, the 9 Firmament meet had concluded almost perfectly. Prior to this, the Emperors and Immortal King experts of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss had been worried about one thing. They were worried that there might be any strange activity from the Fiend Domain. After all, 2 peerless fiends had reappeared in the world in recent years. Each of them was someone that cultivators of the 2 domains were wary of. Nobody knew if the Fiend Domain would do anything at the 9 Firmament meet. Now, it seemed like they were thinking too much. Even after the 2 ranking list ended, the enthusiasm of the cultivators did not dissipate. The perfected immortals who participated in the 2 ranking lists returned to the peak of the Builder Tree to rest and wait for the next morning to officially head to cultivate beneath the Builder Tree. The 9 Firmament meet seemed calm and peaceful. At that moment, all the immortals and monks, including the immortal kings and heavenly kings, could not have imagined what was about to unfold the next day. Chapter 2602 Out of Seclusion. 2602 Out of Seclusion. 8 days after the 9 Firmament meet, the sun rose and daybreak arrived. Avicii was still dark and sinister. In the darkness, a figure could vaguely be seen sitting in a lotus position motionlessly, as though he had fused with the hell. Suddenly, the figure released purple lights that purged away the surrounding darkness, revealing a face with a silver mask. It was the Martial Tao Prime Body. A purple halo surrounded the body of the Martial Tao Prime Body and runes circulated on it in a mysterious and powerful manner. A moment later, the purple halo suddenly expanded and enveloped the gigantic secret chamber. Before long, the purple halo retracted rapidly and entered the body of the Martial Tao Prime Body. The Martial Tao Prime Body stood up with 2 purple flames burning in his eyes. His aura had already reached its peak. A perfected true Martial Tao body. When he was at greater mastery of the true martial realm, the Martial Tao Prime Body could suppress ordinary minor Grotto Heaven immortal kings barehanded in melee combat. However, if an immortal king expert released his minor Grotto Heaven, it would be difficult for the Martial Tao Prime Body to suppress him. Back in the Fiend Cave, the reason why the Martial Tao Prime Body could kill a few Fiend Kings was because that was the tomb of Fiend Emperor Apocalypse, and no Grotto Heavens could be released. But now that the true Martial Tao Body was perfected, the Martial Tao Prime Body speculated that he could probably crush minor Grotto Heavens with his physique and blood chi alone. In reality, the Martial Tao Prime Body had yet to advance to the next realm of the Martial Tao that corresponded to the Grotto Heaven realm. However, in terms of strength, the perfected true Martial Tao Body of the Martial Tao Prime Body could already suppress minor Grotto Heaven immortal kings. Of course, if he was up against supreme immortal kings with major Grotto Heavens, it would still be difficult for the Martial Tao Prime Body to defend once the Grotto Heavens were released. The difference between a minor Grotto Heaven and a major Grotto Heaven seemed like a single word. However, the difference in strength was immense. The Martial Tao Prime Body left Avicii and arrived above Tai Wei Mountain, punching the void casually. Creak! The void trembled and cracks appeared. Given the current strength of the Martial Tao Prime Body, he could tear through the void at any moment and teleport a long distance even without the help of the Hell Suppression tripod. Initially, this was a power that only Grotto Heaven realm experts could control. The Martial Tao Prime Body tore through the void and entered the spatial tunnel, teleporting back to Tianhuang sect. As though he sensed something, Heavenly Wolf's ears twitched, and he opened his eyes warily. He saw the Martial Tao Prime Body descending above Tianhuang sect. Everyone, please head to the Tianhuang Hall. I've got something to discuss. The voice of the Martial Tao Prime Body entered the ears of Thunder Monarch Heavenly Wrath and the others with extreme precision. The 7 Emotions Fiend Generals exited seclusion at the same time. Tianhuang Hall. What? When he heard the decision of the Martial Tao Prime Body, Heavenly Wolf was suddenly shocked and shrieked. You're going to the 9 Firmament meet? Thunder Monarch Heavenly Wrath and the others frowned with grim expressions as well. It won't just be the immortals of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain at the 9 Firmament meet. The monks of the Pure Land of Bliss will be present as well. The Thunder Monarch said in a deep voice. I heard that the 2 domains even sent more than 20 Supreme Immortal Kings and more than 100 ordinary Immortal Kings for this 9 Firmament meet. They have a large force and they're not taking things lightly. The Thunder Monarch had a blood feud with the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. His son, daughter-in-law and even his best friend, perfected Immortal Burial Knight, were killed by the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. However, the Thunder Monarch had not made any moves all these years. That was because the Thunder Monarch knew that given the current strength of Tianhuang sect, they could not fight against the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. Right now, he only had a minor Grotto Heaven and could not fight against King Jin, who had a major grotto heaven. Furthermore, the great Jin Immortal Kingdom was located in the divine Firmament Immortal Domain. If any faction of the Fiend Domain attacked the great Jin Immortal Kingdom, Divine Firmament Palace would not sit by idly. Even the other sects and factions of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain would most likely stand out. The Thunder Monarch knew that Tianhuang sect was only at its nascent stage. In terms of foundation and strength, they were far inferior to heaven-grade factions such as the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, let alone the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. And now, by heading to the Nine Firmament Meet, the Martial Dao Prime Body was not only going against the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, but the entire Nine Firmament Immortal Domain and even the Pure Land of Bliss. This was no different from striking a stone with an egg. "It's fine," the Martial Dao Prime Body said. "I had another breakthrough in my seclusion this time round." Everyone was invigorated and delighted. The Thunder Monarch scanned the Martial Dao Prime Body with his spirit consciousness and revealed a puzzled expression. He could not tell the cultivation realm of the Martial Dao Prime Body. However, he could vaguely sense that the latter had yet to control the power of a grotto heaven. In other words, the Martial Dao Prime Body had yet to reach the grotto heaven realm. "Can you defeat an immortal king?" the Thunder Monarch attempted to ask. The Martial Dao Prime Body said frankly, "Ordinary immortal kings are not a problem for me, but I can't win against supreme immortal kings." Wah! The Thunder Monarch hesitated. At the Nine Firmament Meet, there were more than 20 supreme immortal kings alone. However, when he saw the resolute gaze of the Martial Dao Prime Body, as though he had made up his mind, he did not persuade further and said in a deep voice, "I'll go down and make arrangements to gather the army and prepare to head over together." "There's no need." The Martial Dao Prime Body shook his head gently. "I'll just bring 2 people with me to the Nine Firmament Meet this time round. Xiao Siluo and Gu Tongyu." Xiao Siluo's heart skipped a beat as she suddenly recalled something. Back when the Martial Dao Prime Body heard that Zither Immortal Meng Yao sent people to hunt them down in the Fiend Domain, he expressed his intention of standing up for them. It said that the 4 great fairies were all at the Nine Firmament Meet. Now that the Martial Dao Prime Body wanted to bring them along, it was definitely to take revenge for them. Gu Tongyu had a melancholic gaze and exchanged glances with Xiao Siluo. It was clear that he had guessed this as well. Xiao Siluo said hurriedly, "Sect Master, both of us understand your intentions. However, you must not put yourself at risk for us." The Martial Dao Prime Body waved it off and interrupted Xiao Siluo. "Your matter is only one of the reasons. I have another motive for heading to the Nine Firmament Meet." "I'll go too," Yan Beichen said coldly. He did not ask the Martial Dao Prime Body why the latter wanted to head there, nor did he intend to. He merely knew that no matter what the Martial Dao Prime Body did or how strong his opponents were, he would choose to fight alongside the Martial Dao Prime Body. "There's no way I'm going to miss such a lively event," Demoness Ji chuckled. "Back in the Fiend Cave, both of us managed to escape death. What's there to fear for a mere Nine Firmament Meet?" "Amitabha." Mingjin chanted the Buddhist proclamation softly. "I'll go too." Heavenly Wolf was extremely resistant, and was initially feigning ignorance at a corner. At that moment, when he saw everyone in the hall stand out, he could not help but roll his eyes. "You guys just love to put on strong fronts. When the time comes, you won't even know how you're killed." Heavenly Wolf cursed internally before probing. "Should I stay back and guard our base?" The Martial Dao Prime Body did not give Heavenly Wolf any choices. In a flash, he rode on the ladder's back. "All right, everyone, follow me. Just watch from the side. Nobody is to attack without my orders. Brother Foam, please take care of the others when the time comes," the Martial Dao Prime Body added. Among everyone, the Thunder Monarch was the only one who could protect himself since he was already at the Grotto Heaven realm. After everything was arranged, the Martial Dao Prime Body brought the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals and left Tianhuang sect stealthily, heading in the direction of the Builder Tree. Chapter 2603 Chapter 2603 Threat. Chapter 2603 Threat. 8 days after the 9 Firmament meet, at the peak of the Builder Tree. The morning light shone slowly on the Builder Tree and enveloped the perfected Immortal and Arhat rankings. The names of the 20 paragons on the ranking shone brightly, representing supreme glory that countless cultivators looked forward to. From this day forth, only the top 100 cultivators of the perfected Immortal and Arhat rankings respectively were qualified to cultivate beneath the Builder Tree. Most cultivators could only stay on the peak of the Builder Tree. The 20 paragons on the perfected Immortal and Arhat rankings had already recovered after a night of rest. They were invigorated and stood up one after another. Rank 2 of the perfected Immortal ranking, Qin Su, walked straight towards the side of the divine firmament Immortal domain. Initially, Yunzhu was about to head to the Builder Tree. When she saw Qin Su walking over, she could not help but frown slightly. She glanced at Su Zimo, who was not far away, and stopped in her tracks. Sensing something, Junyu stopped as well. Qin Su passed through the crowd and stood in front of Su Zimo, looking down at the latter, who was sitting on the ground. Su Zimo, Qin Su called out. Su Zimo was resting with his eyes closed. He had long sensed Qin Su's arrival but ignored him. It was only when Qin Su spoke that he opened his eyes slowly. He did not get up and merely asked indifferently, "Is there anything?" A cold glint flashed through the depths of Qin Su's eyes. As a prince, what sort of status did he possess? Furthermore, he was a perfected Immortal who had just obtained rank 2 on the perfected Immortal ranking. Yet, this heaven Immortal from the lower worlds before him did not even stand up to greet him. Qin Su recovered quickly and smiled. "Su Zimo, I'm here this time round to make a deal with you. For you, this will be something that will help you gain a meteoric rise." Su Zimo's expression was unchanged, as though he was unmoved. Through his spirit perception, he could sense the hostility in the depths of Qin Su's heart, although the latter was smiling. As a prince, Qin Su came from a noble background and had a powerful bloodline. He looked down on cultivators from the lower worlds from the bottom of his heart. Although it seemed like he was discussing a deal with Su Zimo, there was a hint of arrogance in his tone. Instead, it seemed like he was giving alms to Su Zimo. Qin Su said, "I'll get straight to the point. As long as you're willing to offer the pure jade manual, you'll be able to gain the friendship of the Qin family. No matter what happens in the future, you can look for me at Grand Firmament Palace. Of course, if you choose to leave Heaven and Earth Academy and join Grand Firmament Palace, I'll consider it as well. In fact, I can take you in as a disciple and teach you personally. You might even get the chance to cultivate the Dharmic Tao of the Grand Pure Jade Manual." Su Zimo sneered internally. Qin Su wanted him to hand over the Pure Jade Manual with just a promise. "Not interested." Su Zimo rejected without hesitation. Qin Su's expression darkened. Narrowing his gaze slightly, he said slowly, "You should know that I'm bent on getting my hands on the Pure Jade Manual in your possession. There are many ways for me to deal with you. You had better cherish this chance that I'm giving you, or it'll be too late for regrets." Qin Su was no longer concealing his motives and was even openly threatening him. "What are you trying to do?" Yunzhu could not take it anymore. She stood in front of Su Zimo and mocked. "As a prince and a perfected Immortal, how dare you threaten a Heaven Immortal? Do you have any shame? Heaven and Earth Academy is not invisible, you know." And Mo Qing stood out as well. Turning around, Junyu came before Qin Su with a cold gaze. "Qin Su, do you want to continue fighting? If you have the guts, don't get the Immortal Kings to save you this time round." In the blink of an eye, the 3 fairies stood out. One of them was even rank 1 of the perfected Immortal ranking this time round, the supreme perfected Immortal, Junyu. The pressure on Qin Su increased exponentially. After a moment of silence, Qin Su shrugged his shoulders and suddenly smiled. "It's just a casual remark. Why are you guys taking it so seriously?" With that said, Qin Su turned and walked towards the Builder Tree. On the side of the Pure Land of Bliss, Shou Wunyan looked in Su Zimo's direction deeply. Qin Su was not the only one. Shi Wenyan had noticed Su Zimo as well. The great Mount Meru seal was a secret skill exclusive to Mount Meru of the Pure Land of Bliss. Su Zimo obtained the Dharmic formulation of the secret skill and was able to cultivate the great Mount Meru seal to such an extent. It was clear that he had obtained the legacy of an accomplished monk of the Buddhist monasteries. Since it was a legacy of the Buddhist monasteries, he should be the one most qualified to inherit it. The small commotion here calmed down before long. The 100 perfected immortals and 100 arhats moved one after another, and arrived beneath the builder tree under countless envious gazes. After everyone sat down, a fairy from the elixir firmament immortal domain stood out and smiled gently. There's plenty of time. There's no need for everyone to be in a hurry to cultivate. I'm good at tea and can serve a cup of fragrant tea for everyone. All right. Shurgu, rank 8 of the perfected immortal ranking, burst into laughter. I've long heard that Fairy Luo Hua's tea brewing skills are unparalleled. To think that we would be lucky enough to have a taste of it today! Qin Su, Sword Immortal Yu Hua, and the others nodded as well. Shi Wenyan and the other arhats did not reject the immortal tea as well. Fairy Luo Hua smiled gently and took out a tea set that she had prepared long ago from her storage bag, brewing tea skillfully. The boiling spirit spring was injected with fresh tea leaves. It was misty and the fragrance of the tea wafted into one's nose, refreshing one's mind. The people before them, especially the 20 paragons on the perfected immortal and arhat rankings, would be the future of the 9 firmament immortal domain and pure land of bliss. If nothing went wrong, there was a high chance that the paragons on the 2 ranking lists would have a high chance of entering the grotto heaven realm to become immortal kings. For many people, this was a rare opportunity for them to build their networks. It was clear that Fairy Luo Hua was prepared for this. She wanted to get closer to everyone present, especially the paragons on the 2 ranking lists. Fairy Luo Hua handed the brewed immortal tea to the 20 paragons on the perfected immortal and arhat rankings personally. Thereafter, she sent the remaining immortal tea to the other cultivators one after another. Good tea! Sword Immortal Yu Hua savored it carefully and praised. It's not bad indeed. Qin Su nodded slightly as well. Unfortunately, there seems to be something missing. Right then, Meng Yao smiled gently. Everyone, if you don't mind, let me play the zither as accompaniment. Do enjoy my music. Amazing! Yun Mubai's eyes lit up as he clapped and smiled. Qin Su, Zhuo Wuqian, and even the arhats were invigorated. As one of the 4 great fairies, zither immortal Meng Yao's reputation far surpassed Fairy Luo Hua. Not many of the immortals and monks present had heard Meng Yao's zither before. Now that they had the chance to listen to this immortal music, even some arhats felt emotional, let alone the perfected immortals present. In reality, Meng Yao's actions were similar to Luo Hua's thoughts. The people before her were all top paragons and monster incarnates of the heavenly world. If she could get to know these people, it would raise her reputation to another level. The reason why few people could hear her zither was not only because she was proud. It was because most people were useless to her, and were not worthy of her playing the zither. Chapter 2604 Chapter 2604 Unable to withstand a single blow. Chapter 2604 Unable to withstand a single blow. Meng Yao sat on the ground and took out an ancient zither. She placed it horizontally across her knees and her jade-like fingers brushed across the strings gently, letting out a faint immortal sound. The moment the sound of the zither sounded, everyone was captivated and could not help but immerse themselves in it. Even the immortal tea in the hands of the cultivators became indifferent and tasteless. Although the sound of the ancient zither clearly sounded in the ears of the immortals and monks, everyone's hearts were unusually quiet. Their surroundings seemed to have become extremely empty, and only the sound lingered. Meng Yao plucked the strings with her left hand to create the notes, while fretting with her right. Her technique was complicated and varied, dazzling and filled with extreme precision. At times, the sound of the zither would be deep and distant, as though time was flowing, causing one to reminisce about the past. At times, it was like a heavenly sound and ethereal like an immortal. At times, it was faint and long, as though a fairy was whispering in one's ears. At times, it would be dignified and solemn, like a gigantic bell. After a long time, a song ended and lingered. The immortals and monks were still immersed in it, and could not snap out of their stupor for a long time. Even Junyu nodded to herself. Although she despised certain behaviors of Meng Yao, she could not help but admit that the latter was indeed outstanding in terms of the Zither Tao. She was truly worthy of the title of the Zither Immortal. Qin clapped and praised. I've long heard that the Zither Immortal's songs are untainted by the mortal world and comparable to heavenly music, and the lingering sound can even reside in one's mind for 3 days continuously. Now that I'm hearing it for myself today, you're truly worthy of your reputation. You're too kind, fellow Taoist. Meng Yao smiled gently. Amitba. Shi Wunyan murmured softly. Patron, the sound of your zither is moving. Impressive, impressive. Many immortals and monks stirred awake and praised. Although Meng Yao looked humble and calm, she was extremely smug internally. After the song, Meng Yao instantly became the center of everyone's attention. Fairy Luohua's immortality had already been forgotten by the immortals and monks. Although Fairy Luohua was indignant, she did not dare to express it, and could only sit back down. When Yunju saw that, she smiled indifferently, and was not surprised. She was in the divine firmament immortal domain with Meng Yao and was also a princess of an immortal kingdom. They had long known each other, and she knew more about Meng Yao. No matter where Meng Yao went, she had a way of being the center of attraction to steal the limelight. Apart from Yunju, Mo Qing was also unaffected by Meng Yao's zither. Yunju looked at the quiet Mo Qing beside her and smiled. Mo Qing seemed to have a way of immersing herself in her own world, and no one could affect her. Beneath the Builder Tree, the perfected immortal and arhat rankings were high and above. The paragons were gathered in a heroic manner and conversed about the world. There were even fairies all around with the soothing sound of the zither. It was a scene that one would yearn for endlessly. Yun Mubai, rank 6 of the perfected immortal ranking, praised. In my opinion, fellow Taoist Meng Yao is not only the zither immortal of the divine firmament immortal domain, but also the 9 firmament immortal domain and even the entire heavenly world. That's right. Sword immortal Yuhua nodded and said as well. Even compared to ancient masters of the zither Tao, fellow Taoist Meng Yao is not inferior and even surpasses them. Rank 2 of the arhat ranking, Wu Gaoni, suddenly said. I heard that a zither fiend has appeared in the fiend domain as well in this generation. She is said to be rather accomplished in the zither Tao as well. At the mention of the zither fiend, the smile on Meng Yao's face clearly froze. But soon, she returned to normal. I know a little about this zither fiend. She was originally from the divine firmament immortal domain. In a ruin, she stole an ancient zither that I took a liking to and escaped to the fiend domain without returning since. Qinsa raised his brows slightly and asked, What zither fiend? Why haven't I heard of her before? It's just a nobody. Sword immortal Yuhua smiled faintly. I heard that she's just a heaven immortal. She's not worth mentioning, and fellow Taoist Meng Yao is on a completely different level from her. Qinsa sneered. A heaven immortal is worthy of being called the zither fiend? Seems like the fiend domain is truly lacking in talents. Suddenly, Linlei said, I heard that the zither fiend's cultivation isn't weak. With her Tao companion, she's one of the 7 emotions fiend generals of Tianhuang sect. Tianhuang sect. The hearts of the cultivators skipped a beat when they heard that. Apart from Emperor Bo Sun and Fiend Emperor Apocalypse, the most notorious entity in the fiend domain in recent years was Tianhuang sect. It wasn't because Tianhuang sect was strong, but because the sect master of Tianhuang sect was truly terrifying. The supreme perfected fiend, Desolate Marshal. Zhuowuchen pouted his lips slightly. The so-called 7 emotions fiend generals are nothing to fear. Apart from Feng Cantian, who is a fiend king, the rest of them are merely heaven immortals. On the other hand, I heard that the sect master of Tianhuang sect, perfected Fiend Desolate Marshal, is rather capable. He caused a huge ruckus at the Immortal Peach Banquet in the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain, and killed thousands of perfected immortals as well as the city lords of the 5 immortal cities. Fairy Jialan suddenly asked. I heard that when this person underwent tribulation transcendence, he attracted the 10th perfected one heavenly tribulation. I wonder if it's true. Ha ha. Chin-se burst into laughter. Those rumors were merely created by a bunch of ruffians from the Fiend domain trying to boost his reputation. Who would believe them? Even the great emperors in history only attracted the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. How is Desolate Marshal qualified to attract the 10th heavenly tribulation? Exactly. Sword Immortal Yu Hua nodded as well and glanced at Mo Qing, who was not far away. See, junior sister. I've long told you that this matter is way too ridiculous and can't be true. I believe it's true. Mo Qing did not argue with him and merely replied indifferently. Lin Lei said in a deep voice, regardless of whether the 10th heavenly tribulation is real or fake, Desolate Marshal's methods are indeed terrifying. Back then, I witnessed with my own eyes how the 5 city lords of the immortal cities could not withstand a single blow from him. When they heard that, the expressions of the paragons on the perfected immortal and Arhat rankings darkened. The city lords of the immortal cities were all experts with the chance of fighting for the perfected immortal ranking. When Lin Lei said that the 5 city lords could not withstand a single blow from Desolate Marshal, wasn't he implying that they could not withstand a single blow either? HMNH. Chin-se harumphed coldly and mocked. That's someone from the lower worlds for you. A coward who is easily intimidated by others. What did you say? Lin Lei questioned loudly with a furious gaze. Shi Wunyan smiled gently. Desolate Marshal is the supreme perfected fiend, but our 2 domains also have our supreme perfected immortal and supreme Arhat. Patron Lin Lei, why do you have to raise the reputation of others at the cost of ours? In the Battle of the Fiend Cave, all the news pointed to Fiend Emperor Apocalypse, and almost no one paid attention to Desolate Marshal's existence. None of the cultivators knew that Desolate Marshal was present at that time and even killed a few immortal kings in the Fiend Cave. Jun Yu glanced in the direction of the Fiend domain and said slowly, no matter what, Desolate Marshal is a powerful and terrifying opponent. If there's a chance, I want to fight him to see who's stronger. Jun Yu loved to fight by nature and had just obtained the title of the Supreme Perfected Immortal. There were not many cultivators who were qualified to be her opponent. As the Supreme Perfected Fiend, Desolate Marshal was one of them. Chin-se sneered and stood up, pointing in the direction of the Fiend domain as he shouted. If Desolate Marshal dares to step foot into the 9 Firmament Immortal domain, I'll kill him single-handedly without you guys even making a move. Supreme Perfected Fiend? 10th Tribulation? In front of me, he'll be the one who won't be able to withstand a single blow. Is that so? Right then, a voice sounded from the depths of the Fiend domain. Chapter 2605 Chapter 2605 Confrontation. Chapter 2605 Confrontation. When they heard that voice, the cultivators beneath the builder tree shuddered and looked over. Mo Qing shuddered and her eyes were filled with disbelief. How was that possible? Was it him? He actually dared to come? Instinctively, Mo Qing looked at Yunzhu beside her inquiringly. At that moment, Yunzhu was a little stunned as well. Clearly, she could tell who it was and nodded to Mo Qing. Mo Qing was only truly certain after receiving Yunzhu's reply. She looked in the direction of the Fiend domain hurriedly as well. There was a bottomless immortal Fiend abyss between the immortal and Fiend domains. The builder tree was rooted right in the middle of the abyss. It was said that this abyss was created by Fiend Emperor Apocalypse in his rage back then, using the destruction axe, and almost split the heavenly world into 2. It was lucky that the builder tree existed and connected the 2 domains with countless roots. That was why the heavenly world was not completely separated. In the immortal Fiend abyss, there were layers of fog that blocked one's vision and spirit consciousness. In the direction of the Fiend domain, through the vast fog, a few figures could vaguely be seen walking over, becoming clearer. Yunju turned to look at Su Zimo, who was at the peak of the builder tree, in confusion. Even with her thoughts, she could not figure out why Su Zimo would ask Desolate Marshal to rush over at this time. What was Desolate Marshal trying to do? Right now, it was the 9 Firmament meet where paragons of both domains were gathered. There were also a group of immortal kings holding down the fort. Even if Desolate Marshal could suppress the perfected immortals of the 2 ranking lists single-handedly, how could he face the 100-odd immortal king experts present? Furthermore, there were more than 20 supreme immortal kings among them. Although Desolate Marshal possessed the Hell Suppression tripod and could break through the void and leave this place at any moment, if the immortal kings joined forces to seal the void, that method of leaving would be severed completely. On the peak of the builder tree, many immortal kings sensed it as well and stood up one after another, looking in the direction of the fiend domain. Before long, a group of cultivators walked out of the fog. Their leader wore purple robes and a silver mask. He rode on a gigantic heavenly wolf demon beast and walked over slowly. The man and mount walked at the front, exuding a tremendous pressure. Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain! Many perfected immortals of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain recognized the Martial Dao Prime Body right away and said hatefully, sounding both shocked and afraid in their tones, "It's Desolate Marshal?" The immortal kings present exchanged glances and frowned in surprise as well. Naturally, the immortal kings had long heard of the name Desolate Marshal. However, this was the first time for most of them to see the Martial Dao Prime Body. Their spirit consciousnesses scanned the Martial Dao Prime Body countless times, but could not detect his cultivation realm. However, through the aura revealed by the Martial Dao Prime Body, the immortal kings could roughly determine that the Martial Dao Prime Body had yet to advance to the Grotto Heaven realm, and was not even at the half-step Grotto Heaven realm. In the eyes of the immortal kings present, Desolate Marshal alone was not worth mentioning. It was mainly because of Emperor Bo-sun, who was backing Desolate Marshal, that the immortal kings were wary. Why was Desolate Marshal here? Was his action representative of the intentions of Emperor Bo-nun? Was Emperor Bo-sun nearby? The immortal king experts of the 2 domains exchanged glances and communicated with their spirit consciousnesses. Both sides decided to hold back for the time being and observe Desolate Marshal's next actions. Immortal Queen Ling Long frowned slightly. She found out about Desolate Marshal's true identity from the human monarch, Lin Zhan. Therefore, she glanced at Su Zimo subtly. Even she could not guess the purpose of Desolate Marshal's trip. However, she was only slightly relieved when she saw Su Zimo's calm expression, as though he was prepared. Beneath the builder tree, the perfected immortal experts were shocked and stood up one after another. They looked at the Martial Dao Prime Body, who was walking over slowly with unfriendly expressions, and were on guard. Desolate Marshal was the most notorious fiend in the fiend domain in recent years, and none of the cultivators dared to be careless. Jun Yu locked her gaze on the Martial Dao Prime Body with fighting spirit in her eyes. Shi Wunyan glared at the Martial Dao Prime Body fixedly as well. There was a playful and interested look in his eyes, as though he wanted to make out something from the latter. Unfortunately, the Martial Dao Prime Body wore the Mara mask and seemed to be shrouded by a mysterious fog that no one could see through. Behind the Martial Dao Prime Body, 6 other cultivators arrived side by side. The cultivator on the left was tall and had long hair. As he strode forward, he exuded a heroic aura, and his gaze was like lightning. It was Thunder Monarch. Heavenly Wrath, Fong Cantillon. Fong Cantillon had changed quite a bit over the years. However, many immortal kings on the side of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain recognized him right away. When Immortal Queen Ling Long saw this old friend from Tianwang mainland, she was excited and delighted. She even wanted to get up right away. However, Fong Cantillon, who was separated by the immortal fiend abyss, shook his head slightly in her direction. Immortal Queen Ling Long took a deep breath and did not act rashly. Immortal King Tsenya of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom harumphed coldly. To think that it's Fong Cantillon. How dare he appear? He managed to condense a grotto heaven and is now an immortal king after all. He must have some tricks up his sleeves. Another immortal king said. Immortal King Sangya sneered. So what? He's just a minor grotto heaven. Immortal King and his combat strength is limited. He's worlds apart from Supreme Immortal Kings. Beside Feng Cantian was a man with a cold expression. He dragged a long saber in his hands. It was Azura Yen Beichen. Beside Yen Beichen was a beautiful and flawless girl in a pink dress. She smiled at the sight of the 9 firmament meet, and almost overturned the entire world. Many cultivators looked at the girl's smile, and could not help but fall into it. Evil Tao of the fiends and demons! An Immortal King expert hollered and used a sound domain secret skill to wake many cultivators up. Hee hee. Demoness Ji was not angry as she chuckled and winked at the cultivators. Every single move, frown and smile of hers was filled with charm. Furthermore, it was imperceptible, as though it came from the depths of her heart, and was revealed naturally. A young monk stood beside Demoness Ji. His eyes were clear and bright, seemingly filled with endless wisdom. Mingjin? On the side of the Pure Land of Bliss, someone from the Buddhist monasteries recognized Mingjin and murmured in shock. He's not dead? Back then, apart from Mingjin, the group of monks who entered Avicii were all buried there. Everyone thought that Mingjin was dead as well. To think that he was still alive and had even joined Tianhuang sect and the Fiend domain. Beside Mingjin was a man and a woman. The man held a jade flute and had a melancholic expression. The woman carried an ancient zither in one hand and held the man's arm with the other, her eyes filled with love. From afar, it looked like an immortal couple had arrived gracefully. It's them! When the zither immortal saw the couple, her expression turned cold, and killing intent flashed through the depths of her eyes. The sect master of Tianhuang sect, Desolate Marshal, appeared at the 9 firmament meet with his 7 emotions fiend generals. This was also the first time he appeared in front of a group of cultivators, and the visual impact was extremely strong. There were clearly not many people on the other end. Even with Desolate Marshal's mount, there were only 8 of them. However, the 8 of them were not disadvantaged in terms of aura against the experts of the 9 firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss. Chapter 2606, Chapter 2606, Stepping In. Chapter 2606, Stepping In. Feng Cantian made a name for himself in the heavenly world hundreds of thousands of years ago, and obtained the title of the Supreme Perfected Immortal at the 9 firmament meet. Now that he had entered the Grotto Heaven realm and become an Immortal King, such a massive lineup could not suppress him at all. As for Heavenly Wolf, his former master was Emperor Bo's son, and he had been up against more fearsome lineups. Everything before him was nothing much. Since he had already come this far with no way out, why should he be afraid? Who are the few people beside Feng Cantian? It should be the 7 emotions fiend generals of Tianhuang sect. Over the years, they have also risen to fame in the fiend domain. So among the 7 emotions fiend generals, apart from Feng Cantian who is an immortal king, the rest are only heaven immortals. Fufu, I thought that they were all incredible experts. Many cultivators on the peak of the Builder Tree discussed. At the 9 firmament meet, most of them were experts at the perfected immortal realm. Naturally, they did not take Yen Beichen and the other heaven immortals seriously. What is Desolate Marshal and Feng Cantian doing here with a few heaven immortals? Could it be that a mere Tianhuang sect wants to go against our 2 domains? Fufu, that's if Desolate Marshal is tired of living. In the eyes of the immortals and monks, Desolate Marshal and the others on the other end of the immortal fiend abyss were truly too weak and were not worth mentioning. There were more than 100,000 perfected immortal experts, and more than 100 immortal kings gathered at the 9 firmament meet. If the immortals swarmed forward together, they would probably drown Desolate Marshal and the others instantly. A cultivator lamented. However, Desolate Marshal sure is bold to dare to come to the 9 firmament meet with just a few people. The ignorant are always fearless. Another person disagreed. Beneath the Builder Tree. Desolate Marshal, how dare you appear at the 9 firmament meet? Chin Se looked at Desolate Marshal with a cold gaze and said slowly. Do you think that the 9 Firmament meet is like the peach banquet where you can come and go as you please? Chinsu had the Supreme Perfected Immortal, Supreme Arhat, and 200 top-tier Perfected Immortals by his side. Furthermore, he had a group of immortal kings holding down the fort. Naturally, he was fearless. Shuawuchen withdrew his dustless sword and flicked the blade gently with his finger, letting out a clear sword hum as he said coldly, "Desolate Marshal, I heard that you hold the title of Supreme. My dustless sword is keen on exchanging pointers with you." Sword Immortal Yuhua smiled gently. "There's no need to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. If he dares to come over, I'll let him witness my moon essence sword first. Desolate Marshal, you're a violent and murderous fiend. If you dare to take a step into the 9 Firmament Immortal domain, I shall stand out to slay you and purify you into reincarnation." Rank 4 of the Arhat ranking, Suba said in a deep voice. Beneath the Builder Tree, the immortals and monks declared bold words with torrential auras. Imo-chin could not take it anymore and could not help but sneer. "If you guys have the guts, why don't you dare to cross the immortal fiend abyss and fight him?" Suddenly, the surrounding voices paused. Imo-chin's words struck everyone's sore spot. Although the immortals and monks looked confident, none of them dared to cross the immortal fiend abyss rashly and take the initiative to attack the Martial Dao Prime body. Firstly, Desolate Marshal was notorious, and was known as the Supreme Perfected Fiend. He once caused a huge ruckus at the Immortal Peach Banquet and caused a massacre in Langfeng City. That battle record was way too terrifying. Secondly, if they crossed the Immortal Fiend Abyss, it would mean that Desolate Marshal would get the initiative. Furthermore, there was an Immortal King, Feng Cantian, on the other end, who would dare to charge over rashly? Chinsu sneered. "Why should we go to the Fiend domain? If Desolate Marshal has the guts, he should come to the 9 Firmament Immortal domain. I'll say it again. If Desolate Marshal dares to step into the 9 Firmament Immortal domain, I'll definitely make him spill blood on the spot by executing him." The moment he said that, on the side of the Fiend domain, Desolate Marshal glanced at Xiao Siluo behind him and nodded slightly. Thereafter, in front of everyone, Desolate Marshal rode on Heavenly Wolf and crossed the Immortal Fiend Abyss with Zither Fiend Xiao Siluo. In the blink of an eye, Desolate Marshal had already descended on the side of the 9 Firmament Immortal domain and was heading in the direction of Chinsu and the others. Pissed! Desolate Marshal truly dared to come over. The cultivators were shocked. Who was the one who wanted to spill my blood on the spot by executing me? The gaze of the Martial Dao Prime body was cold as he surveyed the crowd opposite him with an intimidating aura. Apart from Jun Yu, Shi Wunyan and the other cultivators on the Perfected Immortal ranking, everyone else averted their gazes and did not dare to meet his. The gaze of the Martial Dao Prime body lingered on Chinsu. Instantly, Chinsu felt immense pressure. An indescribable fear shrouded his head, and he could not get rid of it. However, at that moment, he was already in a difficult position. Naturally, he could not take back the boast that he had just made. He could only grit his teeth and say in a deep voice, "I was the one who said it." "You." Before Chinsu could finish, the Martial Dao Prime body had already attacked. This time round, his attack came without any warning. In a flash, the Martial Dao Prime body left the back of Heavenly Wolf and arrived before Chinsu instantly. Without saying anything more to Chinsu, the Martial Dao Prime body punched out. Nobody could describe how terrifying that punch was. His speed and strength had already reached their peak in that punch. Chinsu's pupils constricted in shock. There were many perfected immortals present, including the Supreme Perfected Immortal and Supreme Arhat. However, at that moment, he felt that everyone around him seemed to have vanished. He was the only one left against the Martial Dao Prime body. In reality, that was the case as well. The sudden attack of the Martial Dao Prime body was so fast that none of the cultivators present could react. There were so many experts surrounding the place and immortal kings holding down the fort. Nobody expected Desolate Marshal to come forth almost alone and even take the initiative to strike first. "I can't win. I can't defend against this." Instantly, Those were the only thoughts in Qin's mind. The punch of the martial Dao prime body made him feel a long-awaited aura of death. Even in the fight for the perfected immortal ranking, he never felt such a strong sense of danger against Jun Yu's astral imprisonment. Escape! Qin was extremely decisive. Without hesitation, he abandoned his physical body and his essence spirit left his body. Carrying the Dao fruit and an ancient book, he fled into the distance. Bang! A single punch from the martial Dao prime body shattered Qin's body. The terrifying punch emitted a scorching heat. Before the flesh could reconstruct, it was burned to ashes by the searing heat of the punch. A single punch destroyed Qin's body completely. That was not all there was to the power of that punch. Qin's reaction was extremely fast. However, the moment his essence spirit escaped from his body, Su Zimo's punch descended. While shattering his body, it enveloped his essence spirit as well. That punch seemed to collapse the surrounding void. No matter how Qin struggled, his essence spirit and Dao fruit could not escape and could only sink deeper. Just as Qin's essence spirit was about to be destroyed by a single punch from the martial Dao prime body, the ancient book beside the Dao fruit suddenly shone with a resplendent light. A terrifying aura burst forth and helped Qin escape from danger. Chapter 2607 Chapter 2607 I'll give you a chance. Chapter 2607 I'll give you a chance. The ball of light released by the Grand Pure Jade Manual actually caused the palm of the martial Dao prime body to feel a sharp pain. The martial Dao prime body frowned slightly in surprise. The true martial Dao body had already been cultivated to the perfected realm, and the power that could cause him pain definitely did not come from Qin. The martial Dao prime body pondered for a moment, and quickly understood. As part of a taboo mystic classic, the Grand Pure Jade Manual was extremely precious. Although Qin had already obtained one of the 3 Pure Ones Jade Manual, the Emperor backing him still left a seal on the ancient book to prevent it from being taken away by outsiders. The martial Dao prime body was calm. It was good if he could get his hands on the Grand Pure Jade Manual, but it did not matter if he could not. His goal this time round was not the Grand Pure Jade Manual to begin with. With the help of the seal left behind by his father, Qin protected his essence spirit, and carried the Grand Pure Jade Manual and Dao fruit back to the peak of the Builder Tree. He was scared out of his wits. If not for the seal left behind by his father, he would have died. Even so, he suffered immense losses. His body was destroyed by the martial Dao prime body and his flesh turned into ashes. He could not even use blood rebirth. The crowd was in an uproar. Nobody expected the martial Dao prime body to be so domineering that he would dare to attack a prince in front of everyone and even use a killing move. Less than that, no one expected that Qin would be forced to abandon his physical body and flee in panic after being unable to defend against a single punch from the martial Dao prime body. Qin was not only the son of an emperor, he was rank 2 of the perfected immortal ranking. If even he could not defend against a single punch from Desolate Martial, who else could be a match for him? Immortal King Long Night was enraged and suddenly stood up, glaring at the martial Dao prime body with a dark expression. The scene earlier on was way too sudden. It was too late for him to step in and save Qin. At that moment, Qin returned. Now, Immortal King Long Night no longer had sufficient reason to attack. After all, that was a fight between perfected immortals. As an immortal king, he cared about his dignity and could not attack Desolate Martial forcefully because of this. Furthermore, he was not certain of the situation on Desolate Martial's side right now, and did not know if Emperor Bo's son was nearby. As such, he did not dare to act rashly. The other immortal kings had the same thoughts. The fact that Desolate Martial dared to bring these people over and was so domineering and fearless meant that there was a high chance Emperor Bo's son was nearby. Beneath the Builder Tree, Jun Yu, Shi Wenyan and the other immortals and monks had grim expressions and were extremely tense. They glared at the martial Dao prime body fixedly, afraid that he would attack again. The punch from the martial Tao prime body earlier on shocked everyone as well. If they were in Shinsu's position, it would be difficult for them to escape death. While the immortals and monks were stunned by the aura of the martial Tao prime body and fell into silence, as the supreme perfected immortal, Junyu stood out decisively. Enduring the immense pressure surging over from Desolate Marshal, Junyu asked in a deep voice, "Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain, may I know why you're here?" The martial Tao prime body merely punched Shinsu casually, and did not continue attacking. "I heard that your two domains are holding the 9 Firmament meet, so I came to take a look." The voice of the martial Tao prime body sounded a little deep through the silver mask. "At the same time, I've got some grudges to settle." "What grudges?" Junyu asked. "For the sake of an ancient zither, the zither immortal hunted down my subordinates, the zither and flute fiends, for many years. She even chased them all the way to the fiend domain." The gaze of the martial Tao prime body shifted and landed on zither immortal. "Meng Yao, do you think that Tianhuang sect is weak?" Meng Yao knew that she could not hide now that she was targeted by the martial Tao prime body, so she grit her teeth and stood out, asking, "Desolate Marshal, what do you want?" "I'll give you a chance," the martial Tao prime body said indifferently. "Since you're known as the Zither Immortal, compete in Zither skills with my subordinate, the Zither Fiend. If you win, I'll spare your life." "Humph." Meng Yao glanced at Xiao Siluo and sneered. "What Zither Fiend? She's self-proclaimed, right? What rights does she have to compete with me in the Zither?" "I forgot to mention something." The martial Tao prime body did not explain and continued. "If you refuse to compete, I'll beat you to death." "You!" Meng Yao was shocked and furious, rendering her speechless. From Desolate Marshal's words, it was as though killing her was as simple as crushing an ant. As one of the 4 great fairies, she had always been admired by countless cultivators like a moon surrounded by stars. Everyone was always respectful at the sight of her, afraid that they would be rude. Now, not only did Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain treat her bluntly, he did not care for her beauty at all and said that he wanted to beat her to death. The most frightening thing was that this person did not have any reservations and was domineering. Meng Yao had no doubt that if she said no, Desolate Marshal would attack without hesitation and kill her here. Junyu and the others frowned in confusion. The immortal kings on the peak of the Builder Tree had strange expressions as well. Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain was here to make Meng Yao compete with her Zither skills? Meng Yao was known as the Zither Immortal and was naturally outstanding in the Zither Dao. The other party wanted to compete with Meng Yao in the Zither Dao? Fufu. Sword Immortal Yu Hua chuckled and shook his head gently. How ridiculous. A grade 5 Heaven Immortal wants to challenge Zither Immortal Meng Yao, who is a perfected immortal. Xiao Siluo's cultivation realm was only at the grade 5 Heaven Immortal realm. The difference between her and Meng Yao was immense. In everyone's eyes, the two of them were on completely different levels. That's not fair, right? Mo Qing secretly sent a voice transmission to Yunju. Subconsciously, she was already on the side of the martial Dao prime body and said worriedly, "The difference in their cultivation realms is so great. How can the Zither Fiend win?" Yunju said deeply. "If it's just a comparison of Zither skills, it doesn't have much to do with one's cultivation realm." "All right." After a moment of silence, Meng Yao agreed before sneering. "Since you guys are the ones asking to be humiliated, don't blame me." Meng Yao sat on the ground and placed the ancient Zither horizontally across her knees. She looked at Xiao Siluo, who was not far away, and said, "Come, let me see how strong you are." The moment she said that, Meng Yao's fingertips suddenly plucked the strings of the zither. Clang! A single zither sound was enough to release a chilling killing intent. Instantly, the murderous aura on the battlefield spread and the surrounding temperature dipped. Meng Yao used her left hand to create the notes by pushing, pinching, kneading, humming, knocking and calling. With her right hand she strummed the strings of the zither through varied and complicated techniques such as plucking, propping, swiping, lifting, hooking and brushing. Clang! Clang! The sound of the zither echoed continuously, turning more hurried. The immortals and monks beneath the builder tree seemed to be in a battlefield, surrounded by a massive army. They were ambushed on all sides with killing intents hidden. The zither song played by Meng Yao contained a strong killing intent. If the cultivators closed their eyes, they could sense that a massive army was charging over from Meng Yao's ancient zither with a deafening might. The cultivators were immersed in it, and felt as though they were about to be trampled by the invisible army, and sliced into pieces by countless sabers and swords. If the impact was already this strong for bystanders, it was even worse for Chiu Siluo, who was targeted by Meng Yao directly. Meng Yao's zither sound could be elegant and pleasant. Of course, it could also kill. Chapter 2608 Chapter 2608 Tear the Ranking. Chapter 2608 Tear the Ranking. Just as the emotions of the crowd were gradually stirred by Meng Yao's zither sound, a melodious sound of the zither sounded. The zither immortal and zither fiend were finally fighting. The sound of Chiu Siluo's zither was completely different from Meng Yao's. Meng Yao's zither sound was murderous and aggressive. There was no sharpness in Chiu Siluo's zither sound. Instead, there was a hint of reminiscence and memory. It was like the warm sun in winter shining down on everyone's hearts. In terms of zither technique, Meng Yao was indeed superior to Chiu Siluo. However, it was precisely because Meng Yao placed too much emphasis on the precision of her zither techniques that she was tainted with the aura of a craftsman, and lacked a bit of piety towards the zither Tao. Meng Yao's zither was too utilitarian. She practiced the zither for fame, status, and connections. However, the reason why Chiu Siluo practiced the zither was because she liked it. Her zither carried her Tao, and its sound was moving. Meng Yao's song was a cold melody. However, Chiu Siluo's song contained her feelings. In the end, what truly touched one's heart was the deep emotion in the faint sound of the zither. Beneath the builder tree, the immortals and monks could not help but be immersed in Chiu Siluo's zither music. For a moment, they forgot where they were and could not help but reminisce about the past with different expressions. Images flashed through Mo Qing's mind. In Avicii, she suffered immense grievances and was bullied and humiliated. However, a purple-robed man with a silver mask suddenly appeared and said something to her. If there are people in the world who slander, bully, humiliate, laugh at, look down on, degrade or hate you, there's no need for you to endure or explain yourself. Just kill them. A faint smile appeared on Mo Qing's face when she recalled that. Yun Zhu recalled that back in Avicii, a refined scholar carried her and escaped. There were only a few layers of clothes between the two of them, and it was inevitable that there would be some friction and contact as he sprinted. Yun Zhu lowered her head slightly and blushed. Shi Wenyan had a conflicted expression. Sword Immortal Yuhua seemed to have recalled something as his expression darkened and his arms trembled slightly. The perfected immortals and arhats were touched by the sound of Chiu Siluo's zither and fell into reminiscence, recalling the most unforgettable scenes of their lives. Some of them were in tears while others were delighted. Some were melancholic while others were smug. Some of them were dejected while others were invigorated. There was sadness, joy, sorrow, resentment, anger, and frustration. The 7 emotions and 6 desires were all within. Although Meng Yao's zither sound was still present, it was as though everyone could no longer hear it. Even Meng Yao herself fell into some sort of reminiscence. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she had a sorrowful expression as a bead-sized tear fell from the corner of her eye. Piak! The tear fell onto the sound of her ancient zither. Although the sound seemed weak, it shocked Meng Yao. Her fingers could not control their strength, and with a bang, a zither string snapped. Her fingertips were cut, and blood seeped out. That sound woke the immortals and monks up one after another. It was only then that everyone realized what had happened. When they were unprepared earlier on, they were completely immersed in Chiu Siluo's song and were affected by the emotions of the song. Even her opponent Meng Yao was not spared. Victory was decided in this zither competition. I was defeated! Meng Yao murmured in disbelief, unable to accept the reality before her. Today's defeat was a huge blow to her. This meant that from now on, she was not worthy of the title of the Zither Immortal. All the glory she had once obtained would vanish into thin air. As a peak perfected immortal, she lost to a grade 5 heaven immortal. This matter would spread through the heavenly world within a few days. At that time, she would become the joke of the 9 Firmament immortal domain. What the martial Dao prime body did was to defeat Meng Yao in her specialty. This was a devastating blow to Meng Yao's Dao heart. This was even more powerful than suppressing her directly in a head-on battle. Meng Yao sat on the spot dejectedly with a lost gaze as an ancient zither with a snapped string fell casually beside her. The martial Dao prime body leaped down from Heavenly Wolf and patted the ladder, indicating for him to carry Chiu Siluo back to the fiend domain first. Heavenly Wolf sensed that the martial Dao prime body might make a huge move and was afraid that he would be implicated. He could not wait to leave and ran to Chiu Siluo's side hurriedly. Jun Yu looked at the martial Dao prime body with a strong fighting spirit condensed in her eyes. She removed the astral chessboard on her back and said in a deep voice, "Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain, I respect you for your guts. Against the paragons of the perfected immortal and Arhat rankings of 2 domains, you even dared to cross the immortal fiend abyss. Now I'll give you a chance as well. A chance for us to fight fairly. The perfected immortal and Arhat rankings of the 2 domains?" The martial Dao prime body raised his head slightly and looked at the 2 bedazzling ranking lists that hung high above the builder tree, saying indifferently, "In my eyes, your 2 ranking lists are nothing but jokes." Before his sentence was finished, the martial Dao prime body merely raised his hand slightly without making any moves. Shing! Accompanied by an ear-piercing sound, the perfected immortal and Arhat rankings that hovered above the builder tree were torn into 2 by a powerful external force. 2 torn ranking lists floated down slowly, and the light emitted by the names of the perfected immortals on them gradually dimmed. Wah! The cultivators were enraged. That action could no longer be considered as a provocation. It was a tight slap on their faces. In front of them, the perfected immortal and Arhat rankings were torn apart. To Desolate Marshal, the 2 ranking lists were merely jokes? Those words clearly showed that he did not take the paragons of the 2 domains seriously. How arrogant, fiend! Audacious! Desolate Marshal, the blood feud of thousands of perfected immortals in the Jade Firmament immortal domain has to be repaid with blood. The blood of the immortals and monks surged. Even though they were afraid of Desolate Marshal's notorious reputation, they couldn't care less at that moment, and many people stood out. This time round, Sword Immortal Yu Hua was extremely smart, and did not say anything. He could vaguely sense something. Right from the beginning, Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain had not even looked at him. However, he felt goosebumps all over, as though a calamity was about to descend at any moment. If not for his dignity, he would have left this place right away. The martial Dao prime body could not find an excuse to target Sword Immortal Yu Hua and was in no hurry. He was not only here today for Meng Yao and Sword Immortal Yu Hua. Desolate Marshal! Right then, Shi Wenyan spoke and asked slowly, "From what I know, the Hell Suppression tripod is in your hands right now. And if it is?" The martial Dao prime body asked without even looking at Shi Wenyan. Shi Wenyan took out a Zen staff from his storage bag and said in a deep voice, "The Hell Suppression tripod is a sacred item of the Buddhist monasteries and must not be leaked. If you refuse to hand it over, don't blame the monks of the Buddhist monasteries for working together to suppress you." "That's right!" Yunmabai shouted as well. "There's no need to insist on having one-on-one fights with fiends of the Fiend Domain. Everyone, let's attack together and kill this fiend for the sake of righteousness." The martial Dao prime body was expressionless. The immortals and monks on the other end merely wanted to group up and attack him. Yet they had to dig out a dignified excuse for them to do so. That was perfect. He could kill Sword Immortal Yu Hua through the chaos without having to find a reason as well. Chapter 2609 Chapter 2609 Buddha Dragon Elephant. Chapter 2609 Buddha Dragon Elephant. Under Shi Wenyan's instigation, the immortals and monks beneath the builder tree glared at the martial Tao prime body murderously, prepared to attack at any moment. With the Supreme Perfected Immortal and Supreme Arhat at the front, what were they afraid of? Furthermore, there was a group of Immortal King experts holding down the fort at the back. If anything were to happen, the Immortal Kings and Heavenly Kings behind them would definitely not sit by idly. "Fiend, surrender!" Shi Wunyan hollered. At the same time, he slammed the Zen staff in his hands heavily on the ground with a loud bang. Coupled with the sound domain's secret skill of the Buddhist monasteries released by him, the sound resonated and formed a powerful sound domain attack that was shocking. This was the top-tier sound domain Dharmic formulation of the Buddhist monasteries, stern admonition. If one's cultivation was not high enough and they were unprepared, their Tao hearts might collapse if they were struck by stern admonition. The deeper one's comprehension of Buddhism, the stronger this sound domain Dharmic formulation would be. In the battle for the Arhat ranking previously, Shi Wunyan suppressed all other top-tier perfected immortals with stern admonition alone. Naturally, Shi Wunyan did not expect to suppress Desolate Martial with just stern admonition. However, it was enough as long as Desolate Martial revealed any openings. He would seize the opportunity to release his strongest methods and attack Desolate Martial. At that time, the other cultivators in the group would attack. Even with a single divine power, secret skill or spirit treasure each, no matter how strong Desolate Martial was, he wouldn't be able to defend against them. However, to Shi Wunyan's disappointment, Desolate Martial did not seem to have any reaction when he released his stern admonition. The silver mask was cold and the eyes beneath it were as deep as the ocean and mysterious as the starry skies. "You're too noisy." The martial Tao prime body glanced at Shi Wunyan and said indifferently. No matter how strong Shi Wunyan was, he was only the Supreme Arhat. A Dharmic Tao of this level had no effect on the perfected true martial Tao. Bogey at all. Before his sentence was finished, the martial Tao prime body suddenly attacked. Without any unnecessary movements, he merely strode forward and punched in Shi Wunyan's direction. That punch was like a volcano eruption as raging tides slammed onto the shore. Instantly, it was as though the mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking with an apocalyptic scene. Pissed. Shi Wunyan was horrified. He finally understood why Qin Su was willing to abandon his body and turn to flee against Desolate Martial's casual punch. This punch that suffocated him should not have existed in this world. How could a human possess such power? In a flash, countless thoughts flashed through Shi Wunyan's mind. Enveloped by that punch, he even wanted to turn and flee. But soon, he made a decision. He could not escape. Qin Su turned and fled. He managed to survive thanks to the Grand Pure Jade Manual, and the power of the seal left behind by an emperor. His physical body was abandoned and completely crippled. If he made the same choice, he might not even be able to survive. The only way he could survive was to release all his trump cards without holding back and choose to defend against Desolate Martial's punch while waiting for the reinforcements of the other cultivators. It was not as though Shi Wunyan did not have any powerful trump cards. In fact, in the competition for the Arhat ranking, no one was able to force him to use his full strength and release this trump card. At that moment, he had no other choice. Peerless divine power, Buddha Dragon Elephant. Shi Wunyan clasped his palms together and chanted Sanskrit, turning dignified and inviolable. Suddenly, majestic and divine Buddhas appeared around him. They were indomitable and had already materialized, emitting a blinding golden light and a tremendous might. The kasaya on every single Buddha, facial features and even the fine wrinkles on their faces, brows and eyes were extremely clear, as though Buddhas had descended. The Buddhas chanted Buddhist sutras that reverberated through the world endlessly. At the same time, divine dragons circled around the Buddhas and gigantic divine elephants appeared one after another. The divine dragons roared and the divine elephants trumpeted. It was the divine power of the Buddhist monasteries, Buddha Dragon Elephant. This is... On the peak of the builder tree, the green lotus true body's heart skipped a beat, and his gaze intensified when he saw that. Back in Tianhuang mainland, during the final battle against Tao Lord Bloodfiend, He was lucky enough to see this divine power from monk Daming. However, in Tianhuang mainland, Buddha Dragon Elephant was a supreme divine power. Furthermore, that supreme divine power could only be comprehended if one had extremely high attainments and deep comprehension of Buddhism. Monk Daming's Buddha Dragon Elephant was extremely similar to Shi Wenyan's. However, there were some differences. The green lotus true body was at the peak of the builder tree and was far away, so he could not see everything clearly. With a thought, he secretly released the spirit consonance art and established a connection with the martial Tao prime body. Through the eyes of the martial Tao prime body, he observed the divine power personally and deduced it at the same time. For that reason, the force of the martial Tao prime body's fist paused for a moment, and did not continue pummeling down. If not for that, the punch of the martial Tao prime body would have turned this so-called peerless divine power and all the Buddhas, dragons and elephants into ashes alongside Shi Wenyan. However, everyone else had a different understanding of his actions. In the eyes of the other cultivators, Desolate Martial had released a punch. Thereafter, Shi Wenyan released his peerless divine power and clashed head-on. Both parties were in a stalemate, and were evenly matched. It was difficult to tell who was stronger right away. The immortals and monks were invigorated and their fear of Desolate Martial decreased. At the very least, the scene before them proved that Desolate Martial was not that strong and invincible. Sword Immortal Yuhua heaved a sigh of relief. I knew it. Desolate Martial may be the supreme perfected fiend, but fellow Taoist Shi Wenyan is the perfected Arhat. They're not that much different. The others had the same thoughts. Only Chess Immortal Junyu frowned with a confused expression. As the only perfected immortal among everyone present who had mastered a peerless divine power, her senses were more accurate than others. Although Shi Wenyan's Buddha Dragon Elephant seemed powerful and terrifying, it should not have reached the level of a true peerless divine power. His Buddha Dragon Elephant merely touched the threshold of a peerless divine power. Similar to Yun Ting's immortal vanquishing sword, it was a quasi-peerless divine power. How could Desolate Martial be in a stalemate with a single quasi-peerless divine power? Junyu felt that the scene before her was a little strange. As the supreme perfected immortal, she naturally could not be bothered to join forces with others. She merely watched coldly from the sidelines and frowned. I see. On the battlefield, the two true bodies that had established a connection through the spirit consonance art deduced at the same time, and quickly analyzed the secret of Shi Wenyan's Buddha Dragon Elephant. Indeed, there was a high chance for Buddha Dragon Elephant to become a peerless divine power. However, raising this divine power to the level of a peerless divine power did not only require a deep comprehension of Buddhism. One had to reach an extremely high level in the divine powers and secret skills of the dragon and elephant races. Only by fusing the starkly different Dharmic Taoists of the Buddhist monasteries, the dragon and the elephant race into one could Buddha Dragon Elephant become a true peerless divine power. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.